All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. SQL Dev DBA here, and we are exploring some NOAA weather data, weather stations. How are we going to do that? Well, first thing we're going to do is just walk through the how-to guide. Once we're done with the sort of how-to guide, we will explore the data set in Postman, which is a tool I like to use to explore APIs. Once we have sort of a good request and response flow going, then we're going to make a quick ERD about the data so that we can see all the different tables that we'll end up with, all the data sets and their columns, their values. Then we'll use PowerShell to download the data from the API, first to a CSV for my friends who don't have a SQL Server engine or a MySQL engine or whatever type of engine, which, by the way, you have no excuse now because of that in the chat that's right there. Am I pointing at the correct thing? That. Go there. I have a video about it on my channel, on my YouTube channel anyway, which is right here. Go there, download, or that's the greatest part, is you don't even have to download it. Activate Azure SQL. It's 100% free now. Put the data there and then work with it in Power BI, in Tableau. Honestly, at this point, you can use Crystal. I'm allowing you to use Crystal just because I'm so excited to have you be using Azure SQL. So if you don't like SQL Server, that's cool. We have Oracle Live SQL. You can use the data there as well. It's 100% free, no credit cards, all that stuff. I'm not sponsored by any one of these companies, so that's just me trying to provide you with free resources to practice SQL. Please use those resources. You don't have to download SQL Server. You don't have to download Oracle and like install it and you know, post on Reddit like, hey, my installation failed. What do I do? With a screenshot of your computer, like from like literally you take your phone and you take pictures of your computers and you send them to us in Reddit and hope that we can help you out. Don't bother with that stuff. Just go to Azure SQL, go to Live SQL, and you'll be good to go. You don't have to install anything. You can do it right on your browser. Anyway, I'm done talking about Azure SQL and Live SQL. Let's go back to NOAA. So for those of you who don't know, and honestly, I forget every 3 seconds, NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They do fantastic work recording data all around the world and making it available for us to download, to analyze, to use in our portfolios. If you're looking for a project that allows you to query lots of data, analyze a lot of data, store and administer lots of data, this is a really good data set to use, and it's productive because technically speaking, you can, I don't know, apply for jobs in news networks, in weather services, anything that's like IoT, Internet of Things. You'd probably be able to at least show how you can analyze different weather stations, that sort of thing. And again, I'm talking a lot. So what I want to do is just jump right in. I want to jump right into the how-to page that they have. We'll walk around, just explore it. We'll just explore it for a little bit. We'll talk about how to set it up. And then we'll dive right in to Postman and our ERP. Then download the data to CSV and to SQL Server using PowerShell. And then explore it in Power BI if we have a little bit of time. So I'm going to show you a couple of those things first, and then we can get started. All right. Am I in the right? Yes, I sure am. All right. So this is the website that we'll be using today for documentation. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat as well. Anyone who wants to follow along and explore it, feel free to. It is 100% free. So the first thing you're going to do here is when you land on this page, you'll see that step 1 is request a token. I already have a token. All you have to do here is just enter your email address. They will send you a token for you to use. It's as easy as that. The token's like a mix. For those of you who are not familiar with APIs, the token's just going to be a huge mix of letters and numbers, maybe symbols, sometimes symbols. And then you're going to want to store that token in a safe place. You're not going to be able to really grab it again. So you want to keep it like somewhere safe on your computer, a password manager perhaps. Hopefully you use password managers. Don't be the person who puts it on a sticky note under their keyboard. Please. I'm begging you. Anyway. Yeah, so we're going to store, well, you're going to store your token. I already have mine stored. And then you can use that token for your requests. So the API basically has multiple data sets available. You can see here one of the data sets or one of the endpoints that it has available is a data set. Next is data categories, data types, location categories, locations, stations, and data. We are going to be exploring, I believe, the stations data set today. And why do I say that? Because I actually already did this entire exercise last week on Twitch, but I did it in Spanish, and so I wanted to have an English version that I can post to YouTube as well. So if you're catching this here and you're interested, but you can't follow along at the moment, just know that this will eventually be posted to YouTube, where I'll have chapters. If you're watching this on YouTube, look down there. Down there, there's chapters. You can skip my babbling that I'm doing right now and just get straight to work if you want. And I have them divided into sections of different things that we accomplish. So, again, let's get started. Here's the request token. You grab that token when they email it to you, keep it in a safe place, and then you can start making requests. Now, how do you make requests? For those of you who are not really familiar with APIs, the like super basic way to sort of explain them that I've used is pretend you have a huge restaurant, a really nice restaurant, but that restaurant only has the full meals available if you are inside. So if you're inside there, we'll call it a database, but they have several windows or maybe just one window where you can sort of just walk up and order from a pretty compressed menu. It's all pre-configured. There is very little customization, if any, that you get to do. Very little filtration here. Hey, one Simus. I think one Simus. Thank you for following. Hope you are doing well. Thanks for being here. Let me know if you have any questions, by the way. Otherwise, I'm just gonna babble on for probably about 2 hours, and then I'm gonna go away. That's the deal. That's the deal we have here on Twitch. I get on here, I babble, and then I go away. Anyway, thank you so much for the follow. Hope you are doing well. So imagine, again, a restaurant serves a lot of meals, but only inside. At the window, they only serve like 4, let's say 4, or up to 10. You order that menu item and you get it sort of pre-configured with very little room for configuration. You can't order a full meal. You have to order just whatever they have for you ready. That's basically an API's call, is you call a particular endpoint. Let's say in this case, it's stations. You call it with very few configuration points, the ones that they allow. Those are the parameters. And then they return a data set back to you. The response is a data set back. If you're very familiar with APIs, I'm sure you have like 10,000 things to say about the explanation I gave. That's cool. Do that on your channel and I'll happily watch and learn from you. But that's the really basic explanation for anyone who's really not familiar with APIs. Okay, so we're going to be going to the stations window, and we're going to be calling the stations data set, or the endpoint. They're going to return us a data set, and I'll walk you through how to do that with Postman. Postman is just one of many tools that you can use to explore APIs, to download data from APIs. For me, it's the one I like to use for proofs of concept. When I go to production, when I deploy my code, I'll usually use some other tool like PowerShell, like SQL Server Integration Services or SSIS. A lot of people like to use Python to call APIs. That's cool. That's fantastic. You can feel free to use Python to call these APIs if that's what you prefer. I'm not mega comfortable in Python, and so it's not worth me trying to show you how to do that. I feel comfortable in PowerShell, which is also a scripting and object-oriented language. I feel comfortable doing it in SSIS and also in Postman, but just for exploration purposes. So that's what I'll be using first, and then we'll switch over to PowerShell. All right, so let's get started with Postman. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use the documentation here to sort of grab a template of what the request should look like for this or any endpoint. We're going to plug it into Postman. We're going to try to request it, get a response, and then we should be good to go. Now, something very important is when you go to create a new request in Postman, and by the way, Postman, it's free. It's just postman.com. My account is free. I don't even have a paid Postman account. So everything I'm about to do, you can do it for free as well. So I'm going to create a brand new request. And the request, there's many different options that you can do, different actions. We're going to do a get because we want to get data from this API. Now, what we are going to do is go back to the documentation, which again is linked above in the chat. If you don't have that and you need it, let me know, and I will happily provide the link again. But we're going to grab this endpoint right here, which is these stations. This one says, when used without optional parameters, it will fetch a list of available stations. You can start using parameters below to filter the results. But by default, this will just start returning stations for you. So we're going to copy that, and then we're just going to put it right here in the URL. Hopefully I have the right, oh, there we go. We're going to put it right here in the URL. Now, something important is that we haven't put the authorization key, so it's going to fail. It's going to fail. So I'm going to hit send, and it's going to say, hey, the token parameter is required. So in the parameters or in the headers, you're going to be able to add a token. I'm going to check really quick what that is, how the format they like is. And I'm going to do that over here so that you really can't see too much of my screen because I already have one set up and I want to make sure I do it correctly for you. So if I go here, go to headers, token, and then the token. Okay, cool. Let me see if I can do that again. Okay, tokens. Cool. All right, let's go back. Again, I just don't want to share my token with you. And the reality is you shouldn't be sharing your token with anyone either. Tokens are free from NOAA. You can just request it as step one, and then you'll be good to go. So right here in the parameters is where you're going to put all your like filters and station IDs and only return X amount of items, that sort of thing. But the token, you're going to put it right here. You're just going to go to headers, and then you're going to say the key is token, and then you're going to put a particular value here. Whatever value NOAA gave you back in your email, that's the one that you're going to put here. And once you do that, your call will look a little bit more like this, and we'll walk through a couple of other things as well. So I'm going to go to stations here, and as you can see, mine has stations v2, but then it has a question mark with a couple other things. Those are the parameters. When I remove those, they get removed from the URL. So that's what I'm just going to do, is I'm just going to send a plain one. And because I have the correct token, it went ahead and returned results for me. So this is where the real work can really start. When you get your results, what you'll get is some metadata as one of the response nodes. And that metadata just contains high-level information about the dataset that you just received in your response. It says the offset is 1. It says the count is 154,115, and it says the limit is 25. Now the offset, all that means is we are starting with record number 1 in this entire data set. So why do we even need the offset? Well, there is a concept in APIs called paging, and paging allows you to return lots and lots of records in pages. And so if I were to say I'm going to have 20 records per page, my first offset would be 1, and then when I call it subsequently, when I call it again to get the next page, my offset is going to be 21, meaning the first record I want to see is the 21st record because I already got the first 20. So that's basically how the offset's going to work. Then we have the count. The count's just a basic one. It's very kind of NOAA to send us the full count. Why is that? Well, if you're building either a Python or a PowerShell script, you get to use the count as your limit of records that you're going to get. So if I have a while loop, for example, and I say, hey, while the count of records, or while the offset is less than the maximum count or the total count, keep calling. And as soon as you hit over that, stop calling it because there's no more data for us. And then we have the limit. The limit is how many records we are going to have returned in our response. So I'm going to go ahead and add a limit of 500. And we can see here in the documentation, somewhere around here, that the limit defaults to 25, but the maximum they allow is 1,000. Meaning, if there are 154,000 records total, I would need to call this 154 times with 1,000 as my limit in order to get all 154,000. Actually, 154,001 times, because we'd still need to get the 115. So my first call would be a limit of 1,000 like this. Let's go ahead and configure that. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and enable the limit. And as you can see, enabling the limit parameter just puts the question mark there, and the first parameter is limit equals 1,000. That's now part of the URL. So let's go ahead and make that call. It's going to take a while, but it now shows me that my limit is 1,000. This means that it's returning the first 1,000 records. That's cool. You can take the data and just copy it or save it from here if you want to, but we're going to do this in PowerShell, export to a CSV, and then import that to SQL Server. PowerShell is acting a little bit annoying today on my main PC, so I might actually not be able to import it from PowerShell into SQL Server. We can just do that manually using the import-export wizard, so I'll show you how to do that. All right, the next one I'm going to enable is the offset. Now again, if I'm pulling lots and lots of records, let's say I want to pull the first 50,000, I would start with page 1 at 1,000 records. And then for page 2, I would say my offset is 1,001. Now, note something here, that the first station we got is Abbeville, Alabama, I guess, in the US, or Abbeville, I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah, so that's the first station I got. However, if I say that my offset is 1,001, that means the first record I want to see is the 1,001st record. 1,001st record. So skip the first 1,000 and give me record number 1,001. So let's see how that looks. Remember, Abbeville, Alabama, US is the first station that we have now. And when we send it, we can see it's already to probably Duma, I want to say is how you pronounce this, Arkansas. So it skipped the first 1,000 and it's returning the second 1,000, the second set of 1,000 records. So records 1,001 through 2,000 are being returned here. That's really important. Okay, so that's again the offset. Now we're going to switch this back to 1, and I'm actually only going to return 500 records. That's all I'm going to return. Now, there's a third one here that you can see is disabled right now. I'm going to go ahead and enable it because I like it. Now, I'm working on a special project, And to be able to make any use of data, what I want is to include a start date. Is it start date that I included? Pretty sure. Yeah, start date. Now, what is start date? It's a filter that says, hey, only give me stations that have data at least by this date, meaning they have to have data on or after the particular date that I send them. So I only want active stations that have data or recent data. And that's why I'm saying that my start date is 2025-0101. Notice that you need to push it in this format. It can't be 0101-2025. It can't be 2025-0101 without the dashes. It has to be year, dash, month, dash, date. They even say that in the documentation, I believe, right here. ISO formatted date, it must be in this format. Otherwise, you're not going to get data back. So just know that that's a requirement. Okay, and so now I have all these three parameters activated. I'm going to resend the data. And now we can see that based on my start date filter, we only have 37,000 stations that are active as of the year 2025. And so now your data set gets reduced. Now, if I call this with 1,000, I only have to call it 37 times and I get all the data. So that's pretty convenient. And again, if I called it with pages of 1,000 records, I would need to offset the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth call, etc. You can do that in a loop in either Python or C# or PowerShell, whatever you decide. If I have time, we'll touch on that while we're doing PowerShell, but I'd rather just get to the point and get you working so that you can take over from here. Okay, so we have the data. Now, what we want to do is we actually want to create a quick ERD. If you're watching this on YouTube, sorry Twitch, you're going to have to hang in here. But if you end up watching this on YouTube and you don't want to do the whole ERD portion, that's perfectly fine. You can use the chapters down here to just skip along to when we start using PowerShell to download this data. I'm not going to be offended. You can do whatever you want. And then eventually we'll be creating this Power BI report right here, which allows you to filter. It allows you to zoom in on particular stations, hover over them. This is available right now, right here, actually. Let me go ahead and send a link for anyone who wants to check out the report right now. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description below. But if you're on Twitch and you want to check out the report, it does work on mobile. You just have to tilt your phone. Feel free to check it out and explore it. And let me know if I did something wrong. I'm happy to correct any issues that you see as well. All right, so here, what we're going to do is we're going to build an ERD. The ERD is going to look like this. Not like that one, like this. And basically what this is just a map of all the tables. You'll see that there's no connections here. There are actually no connections right here. That's what we were doing over here in the Spanish version of this stream last weekend. And we're just going to redo this all over again, just so you can get familiar with it. Maybe I'll just do like 3 or 4 of them so that you can just become familiar with it, save you a little bit of time. This will also be available as a PDF download in the description for those who are watching this on YouTube. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started on this ERD. And how am I going to do that? Well, you'll notice that there's some text boxes here that look probably a bit familiar. That's because they're literally copied from the responses. I take them over here, I paste them, and then I create my ERD. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. We'll just create a new page here. And as you can see, it's just a blank slate. And we're going to start this process all over again. Now, the app that I use is LucidChart. It's 100% free. It's like a freemium type one. The account that I have is a paid account. I pay for it myself, but you don't have to. If you have less than 40 objects on your canvas here, you don't have to pay. I think they only make you start paying when you have stuff that's over 40. So as long as you don't put a lot of fluff in here and you just delete as you go, you're going to be good to go with your free account. Feel free to use that. So I don't think you get any like lack of features either. I think it's just 40 objects last time I checked anyway. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is, again, we are going to go to our stations call. And as you can see here on the left, I have one call for stations, one call for data set, one call for products, one call for location categories, data types, and data. Now, the one that actually has data in it, like temperatures and wind speed and all that stuff, that's the data call. And you can feel free to explore it right here in the documentation that it has, and you'll see maybe some sample responses. Does it have any? Yeah, it does have sample responses. It's just a very interesting way to return the data, because sometimes they return the data in like a monthly summary, a daily summary, an hourly summary, all that stuff. And to know what sort of data you're going to get, you can see here that there's a call, a sample call, and it requires a dataset ID. Now, for that dataset ID, you're first going to have to call this datasets call. The datasets call is going to return a list of datasets that you can acquire from different weather stations. So for the same station, it's very possible that you'll get multiple datasets back if you call them correctly. You'll get an hourly summary, a daily summary, that sort of thing. So we're going to explore that in a second while we're creating our ERD, one endpoint at a time. So let's go ahead and get started with our ERD. The first thing I'm going to add is an ERD or an entity. But if you're lazy like me and you actually don't want to add these manually, what you can do is go over here to the templates and just search for ERD. And it'll give you a couple of examples of different ERDs that you can actually add. So let's pretend that we want to use our hockey game ERD template as a sample. We'll go ahead and just use that. And you can see that it already has a bunch of tables there for you. So I don't need all these. I'm going to go ahead and just delete a couple of them. And I'm just going to keep a couple of these for examples to be able to sort of copy and paste. Now, the thing is, I don't really like this because all it does is give you a column name. I like to at least have a column name and a data type. So you can either create it on your own, or you can take an existing one and just change the shape of it to any one that you like. For example, I like this 2-column one, which is the column name and the data type. That's what I'm going to use for mine. So I'll switch all of these over. And now we have what we need, right? Let's go ahead and get started. Along the top here, I'm just going to copy this and just bring it down here. Along the top, we're going to have whatever the table name is or the data set name is. And for the first one, it's going to be stations. Why? Because stations is the first one that we were able to get data for. So what I'm going to do is just copy this. And I'm going to double click anywhere and just paste it. Now, as you can see, it's in like colored font. I'd rather just have this fully black font. So I'm going to change that to all black. And now we have it in all black font. So what I'm going to do is just use all of these. Everything here on the left is a field, and everything on the right of the colon is a value. So elevation is a field, min date is a field, latitude, name, data coverage, ID, elevation unit, and longitude. So that's what I'm going to do over here. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. There we go. The first field is going to be min date. No, sorry, elevation. Then min date. I like to capitalize mine, at least the first letter of every word. So I use Pascal case. Max date. And I just tab over to get to the next one so I don't have to use my mouse as much. Latitude, longitude, name, and then we ran out of fields, so I'm just going to add some like that. All right, let's keep going. Data coverage, ID, elevation. Nope, I did that wrong, didn't I? I tabbed over not enough times. Elevation, unit, and longitude. All right, so those are the fields in the order that it's going to give them to me. However, it's important to know that you don't have to maintain this order when you're designing your tables. What we're designing right now is a map, right? So I'd rather have it in an easy to read form. And so what I'm going to do is change a couple things. I'm going to change the ID to be the very first value. I'm going to change the name to be second. Then we'll take care of our elevation and elevation unit. Those two are going to be together. And then my data coverage, my latitude, my longitude, which I realize right now I added it twice, so I'm going to just remove that, and my min and max dates. So now this is in a much better order for me to be able to consume and for anyone to be able to consume as well. And what we're going to do is try to maintain as much consistency as possible when we're doing the rest of these ERDs, or the rest of these entities, sorry. Also, I don't like how this is not uniform. It's going to bother me the rest of this stream if I don't do it now. So let's just go ahead and do it now. There we go. This is meaningless, by the way. As soon as you're done creating these, you can just get rid of these. That's absolutely fine. Or you can keep them as sample responses, right? So I have them still here. I can probably make another section with sample responses. That'd be pretty cool, I guess, just to give people a bit of a map. And while I'm on that topic, why am I even creating this? Several reasons. I like to have a visual picture of all the different data sets that I have. It allows me to start making connections. So connections like the ones that we made here, of relationships between the data sets. And for me, the final use is actually a dual purpose. Number one, it's going to allow me to have sort of a map so that anyone who's looking at this data set in the future knows their way around without having to do all this exploration themselves. So it's like documenting, it's documentation, but you're doing it while you're developing. And then number two is, there could be the scenario, like I'm a manager of a data team, and so I try to be as involved as possible, but sometimes I don't have the time. So I would give this to my data engineer or my DBA, and I would say, here's the plan. Here's what the data is going to look like. Create these destination tables, please, so that we can have the data transported here so that they have a resting place. And they'll go in, they'll create a staging version of these, and then they'll create a historical version or a final version of these as well. So that is one of the best use cases for it, is for documentation and also for as a plan. So you don't have to, so that they can have context and they can have like a blueprint of what to build out as DBAs, data engineers, etc. And I do this anytime that I start working with a new vendor, a new partner, all that stuff. Whenever I know and I'm able to explore the data in Postman, I draw one of these up and I give it to my team so that they can begin creating the destination tables. Okay, so where were we? Right here with stations. Now, I have all the column names, but I'm missing the data types. So let's take a look at the data types. Right off the bat, I can tell the ID, the sample value that we're getting here, is a mix of letters and numbers. So I'm just going to use varchar, and I'm not sure how long it's going to be. I think I went with 200 as my standard for long enough for unknown data, but not overwhelmingly big. So I'll keep it at 200. Let me double check my other one to make sure that's what I did. Yeah, 200. And that's my usual standard. Sometimes I'll go up to like 500 if I'm not sure. Sometimes I'll go to 1,000. PowerShell, for example, if you're using PowerShell to automatically load your data, they just put everything as nvarchar max. In DBATools, for example, they'll just auto create your table with nvarchar max so that the data makes it in. And then you're responsible for making sure that the correct data types are used. It doesn't really care, it just wants to push the data in as fast as possible and with minimal conflict. So that's DBATools and how it does the job. All right, so the name, again, we're going to go with varchar 200 because we see that the name right here, I believe this is UAE. or United Arab Emirates. So we want to accommodate anything that's really, really long. So I'll just go ahead and push it to the 200 in here. Elevation, you can see, is 34. So your mind would go, oh, well, it's 34. That means it's an integer. But you want to be really careful, because when we go back to our sample data that we got back, you can see that some elevation values are actually decimals. 26.8 here. And that's measured in meters. You can see that elevation unit is coming back too. So what we actually want to do is use a decimal. Now, for a decimal, I like to use 18.2 when I'm working with money. I don't like to use money, the money data type. I like to use decimal. Usually I'll do 18.2, which means 18 total numbers and 2 after the decimal place. Here I'm going to do, I think 10.2 works well. 10 digits for elevation I think is enough. What did I use in my other one? I used 18.4 because I guess we found some values. So I'll go ahead and just, hey, use 18.4. As a reminder, I did do this stream in Spanish already, and whatever I have already pre-made, I'm just doing it again for you all so you can have it in English as well. All right, elevation unit, that's obviously going to be words. So we'll use varchar, maybe 50. 50 is pretty good for that. I don't think there'll be any units that are more than 50 characters long. All right, data coverage. What is data coverage? After doing some research here, I found that data coverage just means what percentage of the area around the weather station it covers. So with our sample data here, we can see the data coverage is about 99% for this one, 99.83, 73.98, etc. So this is where I found I want to do 4 places after the decimal is to accommodate these. So when we go back, we're going to go ahead and do decimal 18.4. So 4 places after the decimal, 18 digits total. All right, latitude. I think I usually do like 10.6 on this, but let me double check. 18.10, I guess, 18.10. We'll do decimal 18.10. If you're in Oracle, you would use, depending on your version, you can use like number 10, number 18.10. I think that should still work. Decimal 18.10. I know number in Oracle does accommodate decimals, so that's why I say you can probably use number. All right, the min date, that's just going to be a date, and the max date as well. You can see right here, these do not have times. There are some fields here in the responses that you'll get, depending on where you go, where you will get a time. For example, hourly summaries, when you get hourly summaries, those will have times on them. So be very careful with what you call or what data type you choose, because it'll happily import the data, but it'll strip off the hour. If you're looking for an hourly summary, you're just going to have a day. So just be very careful about what data you're getting back and accommodating it that way. If you just want to be a little lazy, just make everything a date time. Don't worry, your boss is paying for the space. You don't have to worry about that. Make everything as big as possible, and just ask the boss for more disk space. You'll be good to go. Okay, so here we go. We have stations ready. Now let's do 1 or 2 more, and then we can switch over to our standard diagram. Let's see, how are we running on add time? I think we're okay on add time. Still about 15 minutes left or so. Okay, let's bring in 1 more. Let's head over to the products endpoint. And as you can see, it's really the same base API, which is this, but instead of stations, it says products. So I have a limit of 500 here and the offset at 1. So we start with the first one. An error occurred. Fantastic. Let's see if we can remove some stuff and see if it returns anything. No, just an internal server error. Oh, you know what? Products is not part of these documented data sets. Products is a result of me snooping around their documentation page, and I found that they have like a weird semi-inaccessible endpoint called products. So we're not going to do that. Let's do locations instead. Here's locations. I have a start date of 2025-01. I have a limit of 500 and my offset is 1. So I want the first page with 500. And there we go. We can see that we have a result set. Now, again, we have the metadata in one node and we have the results in another node. The one that I would encourage you to actually save is this one. You only need this metadata while you're doing all the calls so that you can do things like your while loops, set up your while loops to keep calling until you get to the full count, that sort of thing. All right, so here's the results for locations. Let's go ahead and push them over here. We're just going to create a text box by double clicking. We'll add our data and then we will remove these leading spaces and we'll make everything black because I can't see. There we go. Now, one thing I want to do is, because we're starting to have a lot of data here, I want to make sure I can indicate which is which. So this is locations and this is stations. So at least I know which data set is which. All right, so what I'm going to do is just copy this and paste it down below. Now, I would caution you to not be like me. I like to do a lot of copy pasting and it usually gets me in trouble. Why? Because it usually I'll leave something from when I copy pasted it that wasn't correct. So what I'm going to try to do is make sure I don't do that. But if you want, you can just have sort of a template entity like this off to the side. Not ID. Really? Copy that, paste it over here. You can have sort of like a template entity that's empty. Or maybe it has just ID and that's it. Everything else is erased like this. Maybe latitude and longitude or mixed date and max date you can have, just so it's ready to go, but it also won't confuse you. And right now, honestly, that's what I'm about to do, is delete everything else. Just because I'm afraid that I'll leave something in and mess someone up. So we have the ID, we have a name, and we already know, for consistency's sake, we're going to go ahead and just keep varchar 200. Then we have min date. And I didn't do these in order. That was a mistake. Min date is a date. Max date is a date. Data coverage is a decimal 18.4. And ID is the last one. So are these 5 fields? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we have 5 here as well. That means we get to reduce it. There we go. So now this stations, I'm going to change it to locations. And it's as easy as that. Now I'm going to add one more in here. So I'll just copy the stations and bring it down here. And which one should we do? How about data sets? We're going to go ahead and call datasets. As you can see, same base URL. It just has datasets as the endpoint. And I added some filters. Start date 2025-01, limit is 500, and offset is 1. Those are my standard filters for these datasets unless they don't allow them. Okay, and we can see here that this is a list of datasets. A list of datasets available. This is more for your glossary and so that you can call things like data with specific filters applied or parameters applied. So, for example, if I wanted daily summaries, this is the daily summary code. I would then call data with a particular value in the dataset ID. And that's how I know that I'm going to get back daily summaries. As you can see, I have a different ID here. I have, what was it? GSOY. And what does that mean? Where are we? Here. GSOY. If I search for GSOY, how many data sets did I get back? I only got 11. So it must be somewhere around here. Precipitation. GSOY. Global Summary of the Year. that's what it's going to return when I call it with GSOY as my dataset ID. So just know that that's the case. That's why you use those. All right, so again, we're going to grab a sample from datasets. There's a sample. We're going to paste it over here. Did I paste that right? Did I copy that right? Probably not. No, I did not. Let's try that again. Control C. Double click here for a text box. Control V. And then we change it to black and we remove these leading values here. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Then we sort of make this a little bit wider on the right here to accommodate our inflated values or our larger values. And there we go. Now we have datasets. Datasets, and I'm gonna say, like, in parentheses, reference dataset or reference. That's it. Maybe just keep things simple and just say reference. Why? Because this doesn't actually do anything except return like a list of datasets that you can get. So here we have datasets. We have an ID, so I'll leave that, and then we'll just start from the top here. UID. That's going to be a varchar. Let's say 100 or something. What did I use for last weekend? Dataset varchar 200. Okay, let's just keep things simple, I guess. Varchar 200. Not a lot of variety here. Next is min date. Then we have max date. Then we have name. Data coverage. You can see that there's basically a trend here, right? And I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and say data coverage needs to be before the min and max dates. First, I'm going to go ahead and just reduce the number of values. So there we are. Data coverage is going to go before the dates. So it's going to be the ID, the unique identifier, or the UID. Data coverage, min date, max date, and name. Maybe we should put the name right after the IDs. There we go. Okay. So varchar 200 is the data set name. This isn't like a this isn't like a weather station name or anything. This is just the name of a data set. If we go here, we can see that the name is just global summary of the year. So this is more like a description field. All right, data coverage. That's also going to be a decimal 18.4, just so we can be consistent. 18.4, there we go. And then we have min date. That's going to be date. This one's going to be a date as well, just because there's no times here, right? So we don't really need any times, unless, let's scan a little bit. Do we see any hours? No, everything is just dates. Okay, great. So that means we're good to go with this one. So as you can see, I now have 3 tables. If I wanted to create some sort of relationship like the one that you see over here, we have a relationship between data types, data, and stations. Let's go ahead and bring in data and data types so we can sort of get a relationship diagram going. So we'll bring in data right here. We'll go ahead and give it a call. We'll grab the sample data, comes back. This is actually not sample data, it's real data, right? I'm just calling it sample data for us to be able to use for our ERD. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mark this as the data set. Data. I'll make it a bit bigger here, and then let's remove the leading spaces. Okay, so we're gonna grab from our template up here. There we are. And we'll call this data. There is no ID, as you can see. There's no ID, and let's make sure that that's the case, right? Yep, no ID. So I'll just go ahead and call this date, and that'll be a date, data type, which is a bit weird. Varchar, I want to say just 200 just in case. Station, Now the station, as you can see, looks similar to one of the data sets that we got up here. Here's the station ID. So just keep that in mind for our related tables. So this is going to be an ID that matches this one. And because of that, what I'm going to do is sort of steal this data type here and make sure that it's consistent. So varchar 200. Then we have attributes. And we're going to take a look at the other example data sets and see if any of them have attributes. It does not look like there are any, but just to keep things easy, I'm going to go ahead and just give it a varchar 200 just in case, just so we don't have any surprises. If we want, we can sort of reduce that back down to whatever the value is, but I'm going to go ahead and just give it a varchar 200 just in case. And then value. The value, that's going to be a mix. Sometimes the value is going to be a number. Sometimes the value might be a word. So let me make sure that I use that as well. Yeah, that's why I'm just going to go ahead and give it a varchar 1000. That's what I was thinking last time. I really don't know the vastness of all this data. So if I use a varchar 1000, it's going to be pretty easy for me to just slot any data in that I need to. And I can always sort of fix it in post. When I get ready to present this data, I can cast it as a decimal or as a number, depending on what the data set is, only for that particular data set. So that's really important to know as well. Okay, so I think we have all the fields for data. We're just missing one data set now, right, for our ERD, and that is data types. So there we have data. Now we need data types. Let's go to our data types call. Here it is right here. Again, same base URL. This base URL follows us everywhere. The only thing that changes is this endpoint right here is data types. All right, and we have the start date 2025-01. We have a limit of 500 and our offset of 1. We'll go ahead and give that a call. And remember, for each one of these, you do have to put the token in your headers. That doesn't go away. You have to still do that. Okay, and here we can see that we get results back. We can see min date, max date, name is base data, data coverage is 95%, and ID is all. We have average wind speed. We have cooling degree days. We have cooling degree days again. Oh, there's some season to date. Digital accumulation array. That's going to be text. Very likely it's going to be like a subtext or subarray. Number of days included. 1 hour precipitation difference. As you can see, lots of text here. So I'm just going to copy the first value that we get back. Let's paste it over here. Make it black. Remove all our sample data. Oh, and it added an arrow there for some weird reason. Okay. There we go. We'll remove all our spaces. Really? My selection skills are not very good today. And we will go ahead and give it a name. We'll give it this one a data types name. Great. So again, we're going to borrow from our template while I take a sip of water. Copy and paste. And I think we should be getting to ads soon. So it'll be a good time for me to take a small pause while we play GeoGuessr. Okay, so let's do this. ID is good to go. So we'll start with min date, max date, name, data coverage, and that's it. Now, min date is going to be a date. Max date is also a date. The name, that's going to be a varchar. I think I said 1000. And data coverage is a decimal, 18.4. If we're just using the rest of them as a reference. That's not how you spell coverage. And then that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. So I'm going to rearrange this so that min date and max date are at the bottom. So we have ID, name, data coverage, min date, and max date. Great. Now, again, these are the three that relate to each other. So what I'm going to do is just zoom out a little bit. I'm going to actually copy these and just paste them over here on the right. And then I can start rearranging them to be side by side. So as you can see here on the left, I did stations, data, and data types. Let's first do that. Oop, did I mess up something? Stations is the one I needed. There we go, right here. Okay, we're being pinged by Twitch with an ad break. So I'll do this really quick and then we'll go to ad. Stations, data, and data type. Now, if I zoom in a little bit, we'll see that the data has a station ID. So what we're going to do is one station can have lots of data, but each data record can only be for one station. So the relationship is going to be a one station to many data sets. Technically, it can be one or many data sets. So we can technically use this one station to one or many data. However, if you don't even feel like doing this, as a hiring manager, I would be okay if as a like junior or mid-level analyst, you just have it like this. Showing the relationship. If you're not sure, you can explain that you're not sure what the relationship is. You haven't seen all of the data. As long as you establish which two columns go together, it's usually okay for folks like me who are hiring. If you're like at the data architect level, senior data engineer, that stuff, I would expect you to know a lot more. And so for like a senior level role, this would be expected. But if you're just a junior, maybe entry level mid, it's okay to just do a solid line with no indicators of crow's feet. All right, and then from data to data types, I believe it would be data type here to ID here. And again, we'll just leave these blank, none and none, that's okay. And now we have our relationship. Now, last week I did try to do a relationship between everything, but we couldn't seem to find it. So I just left it like that. If you want to make this a little bit nicer, you can bring in a shape like this and just do an arrange send to back. Arrange send to back. Maybe you can make the color like light blue, put a NOAA logo up here. That's what I like to do as well. Put a NOAA logo up here. And then these you would just leave in their own square. So I can have this, wrong one. Copy this square, paste it, and then put it around these guys over here. Bring it all the way down. I think that's probably too big. And then arrange it, send to back. And now we have sort of a bit of separation between the two. This is good for a PDF because you can export these to PDF, etc. Okay, so we are done with the ERD. We are going to take a quick break for ads. If you're subscribed to the channel, you will be able to play GeoGuessr with me. What we do during ad breaks is just play GeoGuessr. So you'll be able to follow along and play if you'd like to. Otherwise, you can take a break, do some other stuff, and come back. We'll be gone about 3 minutes. And it's possible that Twitch might not include you in this ad break. And if so, feel free to, again, chat away at GeoGuessr. I'm terrible at it, by the way. So just know that that's a thing. Don't expect too much. This is a data stream, not a GeoGuessr stream. So I apologize in advance. But let's go to ads. We will be right back. I want to make sure nobody misses anything. So that's why we take the breaks. All right. We will see you in 3 minutes. All right. First, if you're still here, either Twitch didn't pick you, that's good, or thank you for subscribing to the channel. All right, so we're gonna go resume campaign. I don't even know where we left off. I just know I'm terrible at this game. Let's see, historical buildings. That's a building, and this looks like some Russian architecture. Turkish, Russian, that sort of thing. I think I see Cyrillic here. I'm looking for flags more than anything. I'm just gonna go with Russia. This St. Petersburg, maybe Moscow. I don't know if it's. either one. Let's go. I always go with Moscow, so let's go St. Petersburg. Isn't it over here? Yeah. Let's just guess that, because I'm not. And of course it was Moscow, the one I didn't guess. Such is life. All right, we'll go towers. This is no easier. Okay. I want to say this is South Korea. Specifically because that's a BMW 5 Series Gran Turismo, known as the ugliest BMW to ever exist. I should know. I owned one for like a year or two, but it was mega comfortable. For those who have not enjoyed being chauffeured around, BMW 5 Series Gran Turismo, highly recommend it. When we first had our daughter, I would sit in the back just to be chauffeured around in my own car by my wife. It was splendid. There's so much legroom. Anyway, I'm pretty sure this is South Korea, so let's just do South Korea. We would like fight for turns being chauffeured around. That's how comfortable this car was. And we got it, 8.9 kilometers. That's fantastic. Okay, libraries. That's a library. Ooh. Is this Greek? Yeah. It looks like Greek. So it has to be in Greece, or at least I hope. Do we see anything? Or is this like a Greek part of a US city or a European city? No, it's got to be somewhere in Greece. I don't know enough about Greece to know where I am, so I'll just go with like, I don't know, Athens, somewhere in Athens. I don't mean to, I just don't know enough, so let's just go as central as we can in Athens. I don't know enough. Okay, let's do it. Okay, we are back from ads, and we at least got the country right. That's good. We'll do one more GeoGuessr, and then we'll get back to work. Next up is what? PowerShell? I think it's PowerShell to get our data. So let's do city squares and see if I can end this correctly. And already, I'm completely lost. Is this Germany? Berlin? Is that Berlin? Does that say Berlin on there? I'm pretty sure it does. That's a Renault Espace, I think. I've never seen one of those in real life. Anyway, I'm pretty sure this is Germany. Can we look for any flags? Are there any German flags around? No. But there's a smart car that I don't know what to make of that. We'll go with Berlin. I think this is Berlin. Where in Berlin? No idea. I have a family member in Germany as well. She's German. So I'm hoping I can get this right so that to make her proud. Yes. Okay. Berlin it is. Well, 5.7 kilometers. That is not bad at all. Okay. Oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do turbo mode. First of all, I hate it. Second of all, I'm terrible at it. So you don't want to see me do turbo mode. Maybe in the next ad break, I'll do that and embarrass myself. But I won't do that right now. Okay. Back to work. So we have, again, our data sets. We already did our ERD. We did part of it in this stream, but I already have sort of a finished version over here. So we know all of them. At this point, I would go ahead and give this plan to the DBA on my team, to the data engineer on my team. But obviously, you're looking at that person right now. So I have to do this all on my own. But we're not going to do that just yet. What we're going to do is use PowerShell to download our data. Now, again, you can do this with Python. You can do it with PowerShell. You can do it with SSIS. And I want to say that in one of my future streams, very, very near future, I am going to tackle this in SSIS because I actually do need to do this at scale. And even with PowerShell, like I have done it at scale before. I actually have a stream. I have 2 streams where we use different APIs. Those are available right some around here in the chat or in the description below, or just around my channels if you're on YouTube. But basically what we did was we explored two different APIs. The first one was a theme park wait time API, which I absolutely love. It's theme-parks, no, qtimes.org or qtimes.com, q-times.com. It gives you like a live feed almost, like 5 minutes, I think is the delay of like 300 or 400 different parks around the world. Every single ride, it gives you the wait time information. It's super cool. And the second one we did was an Olympics API, which had live Olympics data. It was sponsored by a company in Brazil called Codante. And what they do is educational stuff for web development, for middle tier development, that sort of thing. And they had a hackathon last year. And so I was part of that hackathon where I just downloaded the data from their API and I made a Power BI report for it. So yeah, those are a lot of fun. But today we're doing this weather one. So what I'm going to do is pop open PowerShell on my PC and make sure it opens. Right now we're using a Mac, but let's switch over to my PC. Okay, so now we're on my PC, and as you can see, there is a finished product here. What we're going to do is just basically rewrite this all over again, just to make sure that you can follow along, that you can do it yourself, that sort of thing. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just pop open a brand new PowerShell script. Now, if you're not familiar with PowerShell, but you do have a Windows machine, just go to your start menu and type in PowerShell ISE. This is the ISE version. It's not the standard PowerShell, which only comes with this, blue screen. If you're staring at something like this without the white part, that means you're on the wrong PowerShell development environment. Open up PowerShell ISE, and you can Google like how to enable it if you happen to not have it installed. I'm running administrator mode. I don't think you have to for this, but I always run it just because I run into lots of issues if I don't. So we'll go ahead and get started. I think that I can split this window into like another one. Can't I? Can I or can't I? I'm pretty sure I can split it. Show script pane. Show command window. No, maybe I can't. Maybe I can't. So what I'm going to do instead is just copy this over to like a command or to like a notepad. So let's see if I can do that here. And then do I have Notepad++ open? I sure do. Why would I not? It's like my favorite application. It looks like I didn't copy everything. So let's try that again. Okay, that's not everything. Control A, Control C, and then Control V. Super. Why isn't it working? Let's see if I can just grab everything again. Copy and paste. Okay, now I get even less. I think it's because there's like some character here that's not letting me copy. Let me see if I can grab this. Why is it being all weird? No, this is the next line. Okay, there we go. Now it let me for some weird reason. I guess it wasn't letting me before. So I'm just going to have this here on the side, and then we'll write it together here on the left in a brand new script. And I'll change the language here in Notepad to PowerShell. All right, so again, with PowerShell, it's just a list of instructions that you're giving it. So the first thing I want to do is call the API and get a response back, just like we did with Postman. We're just trying to automate that and script it out instead of doing it manually ourselves. Why do I say that? Well, because technically speaking, we actually can go to Postman. And of course, I don't have Postman open here, so let's try it. Hopefully it doesn't make me log in again. Nope, I'm good. Yep, my workspace. With Postman, you basically just call, you get your response, and if you really wanted to, what you could do is take everything in these results and just copy it, save it to a text file as a JSON, and you'd be able to do that. But what I want to do is not only automate this call, but I also want to use PowerShell to convert it more to a table format and then export it as a CSV for my folks who don't have access to a database engine, or also export it to SQL Server directly, because that's a thing that can be done. So what I'm going to do is go back to PowerShell ISE and then open up Notepad++ right next to it. And the first thing we're going to start with is a token file path. Now, why did I do this? Well, I did this because I didn't want you to see my token. Technically speaking, you can just create a variable called token here, and that token can be set to whatever your token is. You can paste it directly in here. Let's say that's your token. You can set it to just that, and that's absolutely fine. In fact, we'll keep that there. However, if you want to use your real token and you have to present it to other people, or you're planning to share this with folks, what I would do is use this token file path instead. And basically what it means is I have a text file that I created, has the token in there. All I'm doing here is actually just telling PowerShell to go get the contents of that text file and use that as my token. So that is something that I would suggest you do, but you don't have to do it. All right. And so now, because of the fact that I have my token as a text file, I'm also going to say that my token equals, and up here, you can have my your own token, but I'll say that this one is my token. So I'll rename this to token file path, and my token is going to be equal to get content, and then the path of token file path. Again, you don't have to do this part. It's only if you decide to store your token in a text file that you have to. You can actually skip this whole token and just have the token be equal to whatever your token is. I hope I explained that correctly, but you do not need this if you're not going to share with other people. I'm literally sharing it on the internet right now, which is why I don't want you to see my token. Okay. Then we have a start date variable, which I'm going to set equal to 2025-01-01. And this might look familiar. This is because we're going to use it as part of our call over to stations. All right, next variable is the end date. No, the record limit. Record limit. And that's going to be equal to 500 for now. And then we have one more called record offset. And that's going to be equal to 1 for now. And I'll talk about how to loop that in a second. Now, we have a start date, a record limit, and a record offset. And we'll put comments above all of these. If you see the pound sign here, that's because it's just a comment. It's for us. So here we are reading the token from the text file. Nope, that's the wrong one, isn't it? Here. I'm going to say read the token from the text file. And then here, I'm going to tell it that this is getting, no, I'm going to say just whatever it says over here, path to the text file containing the token. Super. Now we have a declare, okay, we'll say establish the start date to search. The next one is establishing, oh, no, it's supposed to be a pound sign for a comment. Establish record size limit. Next is establishing offset. So establish offset, and you can use declare if you prefer the word declare. For me, it doesn't really matter. This code is not going to get run or anything like that. It's not going to make it to production. Maybe someday. All right, our next step is, as you can see here, is to define the API endpoint and the headers. So here I'm just going to say define API endpoint and headers. what I would do is I would have a separate PS1 or PowerShell 1 file for each PowerShell script, I think, file. For each endpoint, I would have a separate one. That's how I like to do to keep things organized. And maybe I would have one additional PowerShell script to run all of those in sequence, or maybe we would run them in parallel. Now, why do I say that? Why do I separate everything? Is because I want to give the ability for modular approach. So because this is independent of really any other scripts, I want to be able to run it independently. If I have them all in one file, I won't be able to do that. I'll have to run them in sequence, and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to take one away if I need to, or add one if I need to, that sort of thing, without having to rewrite everything and redeploy things. So that's why I keep all my endpoints in separate files. So this is just going to be our stations file that we generate. Okay. Now, the URI variable is going to be equal to, as you can see here, our endpoint our endpoint URL for stations. So how do you get that? Well, if you go back to either Postman or the documentation, you will see that the stations is right here. So I'm going to copy that as my base URL. And then what I'm going to do is add specific parameters to it. So as you can see, it has parameters added. Now, how do I get those values? Well, you don't even have to worry about that. If you did the Postman step with me, you'll actually have those right here. You'll have the full call. So here's the call for stations up here in the URL. I'm going to copy those over and paste it here instead. Now, I like to have it like this the first time I call, because it will allow me to know whether or not I'm getting it right. And then I can worry about getting things, using these variables like start date, record limit, and offset. My first call, I just want it to be very simple. So that's what I'm going to do. So here, I'm going to use my headers. Just going to copy this headers line and add it over here. If you want to build it yourself, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to build it myself just because I already built it, and I probably leave room for mistakes here. If you want to know how to get this, that's going to be right here in Postman as well. Am I allowed to push the body? I think I am. I'm sorry, I can't go to the headers, but your Postman does have the headers in raw form. That's allowed. It's just if I went to the headers, you would see my my token, and I don't want you to see it. So I'm going to be sharing this script, by the way, so you'll be able to take it and just make it your own if you want. But this headers area, you won't really have to change it up very much at all. You should be okay as long as you use the token. Now, this is very important because this is where my token lives. So what it's going to do is actually say, hey, the token is this dollar token, and that's a variable that's going to live up here. Now, for me, it lives as a file, and then PowerShell actually gets the value from that file and stores it to the token variable. But for you, it can literally be this token right here. So if this were named token, this would be your token right here, and you would just pass this token right in here. Technically speaking, you could also just paste your token right here if you wanted to as a token value. That's absolutely fine without the dollar. That's absolutely fine. I'm not going to do that because, again, I want to keep my token as secure as possible. So this is what the headers look like. And then we're actually not making the call yet here. What we're doing is we're defining the URL and the headers that we're going to use for the call. How do we make the call? Well, that is right down here. So let's go ahead and add it. So I'm going to say make the API call and retrieve the data. All right, so to make the API call, we're going to use invoke REST method. That function, it says invoke REST method. It asks you for what URI you want to use, and that's going to be this value here. The method is going to be get, just like we used in Postman, and our headers is going to be this value right here. So the contents of this value. And that's all you need to do a REST API call in PowerShell. But what we want to do is we want to store the response that we get in a variable as well. So how do we do that? Well, all we have to do is add the value response, or a variable called response, and say that is equal to whatever we get back from the API call. So if we run this right now, nothing really will show on the screen other than maybe some errors. What we want to do is sort of print the response that we got back. So in order to print the response, what we're going to do is just write the variable response like that. And that will give us our response back. Now, I have to do a little bit of configuration here to make sure that I can use the same stuff. Don't worry about doing this. If you already have your token set up, you're okay. I'm just trying to tell it, hey, go ahead and use the contents of my file in order to get the token. So let's see if this works. Hopefully it does. I usually run into errors during my stream, but if we do, then I'll go ahead and work through them. So let's see how we do. Okay, so it looks like we did get a response back from our stations. As you can see, here's the results. We got a metadata and we got results. Now you're probably thinking, that doesn't look familiar. Postman didn't return it like that. Postman returned it like this. Well, it's because Postman formatted it for you very, very nicely. If it didn't, let's see if I can do a raw. It would look like this, which is more like what PowerShell looks like right now. This just is doing the word wrap for you, but it's really long. It's a really long stream horizontally. So Postman just is very nice. And if you pick JSON, it'll format it as a JSON document. So that's pretty cool. But it doesn't really matter to us. Why? Because we're not even going to store this value. We're going to use PowerShell to reformat it as a table and then use that instead. Now, something that's really important is that we actually get sort of two data sets back in one response. We get a metadata response and we get a results response. That's what you see down here, metadata and results. Now, what I'm going to do is not trick PowerShell, ask PowerShell very nicely to give me one of those at a time. So how do you do that? I'm going to ask it to print. I'm going to say print the response just for metadata. How do you do that? Well, you just print response dot metadata, and it'll only give you back just the metadata. And to show that, I'm just going to comment the initial response, and I'm going to recall this with just the metadata. And you can see all it gave us was the metadata. And then you can do the same thing with the results. So there's two nodes, metadata and results. I'm going to change this to say results. And now instead of printing the response as metadata, it's going to print only the results. And again, I'm going to go ahead and comment out this line. Make this a little bit bigger, I guess. And now we're going to call it again, and we'll see that it gives us back all our responses. You can see that there were several of them. 500, in fact, because that's what we asked for, right? So we know the call works. Now it's time to redo our variables. Remember up here, I said I just left this alone. I wanted to call in its raw form. We need to now push these variables, because if you look, these values right here are actually variables. And when I change them here, up here, they'll actually change the call dynamically without you having to like reconfigure the call and all that stuff. So that's what we're going to do. And to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is say that the start date, or let's keep it in this order here, the limit 500, offset 1, start date. So with the limit 500, what I want to do is, instead of the actual characters 500, I'm going to delete those. I'm going to close the quote, and I'm going to add our limit variable. So it's going to be replaced by whatever's in the record limit text. Then I'm going to I'm gonna add another plus sign so I can concatenate all these values together. Then I'm going to put a quote around offset and equals. I'll say plus, and instead of this 1, it'll be offset, record offset. And then again, I'll add another plus and a quote and a start date. After the equals, after the start date, I'll add another quote here. And instead of 2025-01-01, it's going to say start date. Like that. And so now what we're doing is we're dynamically generating a URI based on, oh, I forgot my plus, didn't I? Based on the values that are up here. So in order to change the filters, like let's say I wanted to change this to 1000 or to 1, let's say I want to change it to 1 record only at a time, which I don't know why you would want to do that, but hey, if you want to, that's absolutely fine. Then, of course, it didn't do it right. Let's see, our record limit is 1. Why didn't it do that? Now I'm sort of interested in knowing, because why do I say that? Well, when I put the limit here in stations and I say 1, I'm pretty sure that only gives us 1 record. So there's 1 record back. So why did it not give us back the record that we asked for? Just 1 record. Limit equals record limit, offset equals offset, and start date equals start date. I believe that I need to clear this variable first. So I'm going to say clear variable. And I think it's like this, record limit, I want to say. Or clear, whoa. Did I raise the volume? Hopefully I didn't too much. Okay, clear variable record limit. I think that will do it. I think that will do it, and then it'll reset. So I need to clear all these variables, it seems. Clear variable. I think it stuck or it cached the 500 value and kept passing that in, even though it's supposed to be 1. Clear variable record offset, and also clear variable. And you can do this at the top too. Clear variable start date. Let's see if that works and returns only 1. No, it's still 500. What the heck's going on? My record limit equals 1. Was it because I made it dynamic and it's suddenly not doing this right? Maybe my URI needs to be cleared too. Clear variable URI. Let's see if that works. Or is there something? Yeah, I'm wondering if there's like something like maybe I need to clear response as well. Clear. I've never really had to do this, but maybe I need to. Clear variable response. It should be lowercase like that. All right, let's see if that works. Okay, so now it's not returning anything. Oh, no, it's supposed to return something. Okay, my response is now going to be invoke REST method URI get. Let's try that again and see. Now it doesn't want to do it. Print the response.results. Are these clear variables like messing things up now? What happens when I remove that? Apparently, I just don't know enough about PowerShell to get this right. Response.results. It almost feels like I'm printing something that I shouldn't be printing. I'm just gonna go ahead and clear everything. All right, let's try that again. It almost feels like I'm showing the text itself instead of calling it. I'm just printing text. No, this should work. Okay, let's pop over to my Notepad++ document and just copy this and see if I just did something wrong. like that. Now, does this work? Even without all these clears. Maybe I should just go ahead and cancel all these clears and see. Okay, so now equals operator after key and hash literal. Sure. I think I have something not really right here, do I? Let's see, response. Okay, right here it's showing an error. And if I removed that, and now it's showing the error at the top here. So I'm thinking that I just have something not really set correctly. Token file path, start date is correct, the record limit is correct, record offset is correct. That's the declaration. And then I have the URI equals, I have start quotes and end quotes, start quote, end quote, start quote, end quote, and then the value. That seems absolutely fine. Ooh, right here, I'm missing an end bracket. It could be that easy, or it could be that difficult. One of the two. Let's see. Okay, so now it's just printing data instead of actually calling it correctly. So what happens? URI, headers. What happens if I just call plus limit record? Wow, this is really crazy. That's just not printing anything anymore. Nope, it's not printing that. So we'll cut this away. Come on, buddy. Okay. So now here I should be able to say, just give me the response. Response. And it should print it for me. And it's not printing anything. Token, start date, record limit. Is it that we have to like just go to a completely different screen? No, it's the same thing. Maybe I have to clear these and just completely delete them. I don't think that would be the case, but hey. Okay, it's not making the call correctly. So let's see if we can just copy this URL again and paste that instead. I can't imagine this would solve it, but if it does, that means something fishy is going on with my URI. Okay, what does it do now? Nope, now it just doesn't want to connect to anything. Let's see if this one will. Wow, that's super weird. Is it my clear variables? Clear variable, let me delete these even though they're absolutely fine. They're commented out, that shouldn't matter at all. Wow. Clear variable response, that's good too. No, just decided it's not going to return data anymore. Amazing. Amazing. I love it. All right, let's see how we can correct this issue here. We have our token. That's correct. Should we just keep things as simple as possible and just open up a brand new one that's like this? No, we have to do something. We have to do something. Is it that the file path is no longer there? Like, I feel like it would return a response at least. And do these still work? Yeah, this still works. So the PowerShell has to work too. Oh, holy moly. My chat screen froze. I'm sorry. Let me see. Let me see if I can reset this one. I am so sorry. I missed a bunch of chat here. Hypergesture. Hello. Hypergesture says, hello, engineer. How are you? Glad to see you again streaming. Hope things are going well. Thank you very much. And it's great to see you as well, Hypergesture. Hypergesture says, nice shirt. It suits you. And what are you programming on? Is it Python? It is PowerShell. We're trying to make PowerShell run here, but for some reason, even though I had it working great last weekend and this morning and like 30 minutes ago, it's sort of not doing that anymore. ElliotOrnitier, welcome. It says your response variable is response and you're trying to return response. Yes. No, you are absolutely right. Hypergesture says keen eyes. Elliot. You got it. Response and response. Holy moly. Elliot, I need to do something for you. Elliot, I need to do something. First, we're gonna pin that one because that was beautiful, Elliot. Sorry, I didn't pay attention to the chat for a second because of my screen that decided to freeze. But Elliot's absolutely right. Hypergesture says, Elliot, bravo. There you are. Thank you so much. Okay, so now I reset my screen and I can see the chat. Correct. Hypergesture says, give him a prize. I agree with that. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna see if I can do this. Sleuthy. Is that okay to say? Sleuthy? In a sleuthy manner? Why is it delete? Oh no. 1 second. Here. Is it gonna let me do it? Please work. All set. All set. Here comes Sebastian Vettel! Elliot, thank you very much. And enjoy that free month of no ads. Thank you very much for helping me solve that. I appreciate that very, very much. Okay, that was gonna be like another half hour, so I really appreciate you, Elliot. Okay, so let's go back to like our other version because we're good now. Response. Elliot says, wow, thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Black Skull, hello. Thank you for the follow yesterday. And Black Skull says, hi from Argentina. I'm new to SQL, just starting to learn from zero. That's fantastic. Welcome aboard. And I would say, I'm going to pop 2 links in the chat. Those 2 links right there are going to give you lots and lots of information. And also, they are 100% free to use. 100% free to use. What does that mean? That means you can sign up for SQL Server, Azure SQL DB, or you can also sign up for Live SQL from Oracle, and you'll have a free database. It requires no installs. It requires no downloads. You can use it right in your browser. You can practice there. Live SQL also have something called the Dev Gym that gives you lessons step by step. I also have lots of videos, of course. I have a video on how to install Live SQL. It's coming in Spanish, I think today or tomorrow. And then I have a couple videos on my YouTube channel about how to use Live SQL. So I highly recommend those. And I'm here to help if you need anything. If you have any questions, you can feel free to join my Discord. I have a link in my Discord to join our Discord. It's in English and in Spanish. There's sections for English, sections for Spanish. You are more than welcome to post chat there. Black Skull says, thank you. You're very welcome. Anytime. Okay, I'm feeling great because Elliot helped me solve this issue. So let's fix the whole response and response thing. The funny part is I probably had it like from my other one too, messed up like that. But now we should be okay. So let's re-enable all this stuff. I even forgot like what step I was on. That's probably gonna get cut out, isn't it? Is it back again? Is it doing the same dumb thing? No, it's okay. No, I think now it's just like not happy. This response is not necessary anymore, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and comment this guy out. Don't tell me I'm doing the same thing again. No, now I'm okay. now I'm okay. Okay, so the results that it's giving me is response.metadata, and I'm also just grabbing the response itself. Now, what I want to do is say response.results instead of response.metadata and see if it gives us back the results. Let's see. Okay, And as you remember, I have only one in my record limit, so that's why it's giving us only one record. Hey, envy the Elliot hypergesture. You'll have your chance. I promise you, you'll have your chance. No problem. Elliot, as well, just to let you know that I'll be sending you a Discord invite for the subscribers section of my Discord channel as well, where you can just have, talk amongst the subscribers, and you'll get to play GeoGuessr when the ads come up in like 10-15 minutes. You'll get to at least watch while I play GeoGuessr instead of go to ads. All right, so response.results is now giving us one record. Just to test it out, we're going to change the record limit. I'm going to have to probably edit this before I post it to YouTube, right? Or maybe I'll leave it. Maybe I'll leave it. Okay. Here, now we can see I changed it to 2, and now we can see 2 records instead of 1. I'm going to put this back to 500 because now it'll give us 500 records. Hey, we did it. Oh, I think I even have a sound thing for this, don't I? Do I have a... Nope, just a whoosh. I do. Did that do anything? Maybe you can hear that. Maybe you can't. I don't know. Okay, so we're okay. I think it's still cheering. All right, so what are we gonna do next? Next, we're gonna go ahead and send these results to a CSV file. Hypergesture says, SQL Dev DBA, do you think you can spare some time on a question about joins? Yeah, go for it. No problem. I'm happy to facilitate any question about joins. Go ahead and post it in chat while I do the next thing here, and we'll jump to it really quickly when you're good. Okay, response.results is the result that we want. Now we want to post those to a CSV file. We want our next step to write it to a CSV file. And as you can see, this is what writes data to CSV file. Right here, export-CSV. That's a PowerShell function, and we're going to leverage that function to be able to post to a CSV file. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a variable for my file path. So I'm going to say results file path is going to be equal to something very simple. I think, as you can see right here, I have a folder called NOAA output. So I'm going to say C NOAA output, and then I'll say stations _ results, and I'll tag this with ENG for English .csv, just so it'll be different. Now I'm going to open that stations, that NOAA output folder on my C drive, and you can see there's already stations metadata ESP for Spanish, stations metadata old, and then another ESP in old. But we're going to be creating the ENG files now. So that's my file path as a variable. The next thing I'm going to do is write it out to the CSV using export CSV. So the first thing I'm going to do is write out results file, where is it? Oh, sorry. Okay, you could do this just with this, but I'm going to go ahead and put the response results into its own variable first. So I'll say response, I'll declare it and say response results equals, and it'll be $response dot results, just like it says up here. But instead of printing it, I'm going to comment out that print, and you can leave it commented for whenever you want to actually not print it, or when you do want to print it, you can re-enable it. So the results, response results is going to be written here to this variable, and then I'm going to say, hey, that response results variable that we got earlier, go ahead and using my vertical bar, I can command it. That sounds like I'm actually doing something important, but I'm really not. Export-CSV. The path I want to export it to is this variable up here, the results file path, like this. I do not want any data type information to be inside my exported file, so we're going to do that. My delimiter, I want that to be a vertical pipe, so that's why I put the vertical pipe in here, inside quotes. Let's make sure I'm doing this right. Yep. And then I want UTF-8 encoding for any and all special characters and just the file format itself. So I'm going to say encoding UTF-8. You can pick whichever format you're more comfortable with. I just prefer UTF-8 for my CSV files. Now, if you don't want to have this all super long, you can use I know what it's called in Spanish, but I don't know what it's called in English, but it's the key right next to your 1 on your keyboard. If you're using like a US or English layout, it's below the tilde. It's this accent mark here. That backtick. Someone taught me that it was backtick. So if you use backtick, then that'll tell PowerShell, hey, I want the next line to be part of this line as well. So anytime I want to, I can just put a backtick here and it knows to continue the very next line. So there's my command. Response results, vertical bar, export CSV. My path is results file path. No type information is me telling it I don't want any data types. And the delimiter being a vertical bar means I want my separators instead of commas. I know this is a comma separated file or CSV, but I want my actual separation to be a vertical bar. And we'll talk about why I want that in a second. Hypergesture, let me know when you have that question. You can feel free to post it. Unless everything froze on me. Hopefully it didn't. We'll see. Okay, so now that I have this, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and run. And what we'll see is the file will be generated. Let me see if I can bring it up actually right here on the right side. Here it is. We see 4 files here now. And let's see how many files we see after we run this. Let's see. Oh, okay. It just asked me to moderate it. So let me just read it really quick and I'll post it. I think it was just because it was too long, but I should be able to allow it now. There we go. Okay. Hypergesture says, I've been on an interview and stuck on a question that made me sad. I know how joins work, basically, but there were a couple tables with missing foreign keys and I couldn't write proper inner and left joins to get all the rows in the target table. He wanted me to show all the rows, but I failed. Okay, could you give me, where's it go? For some weird reason, it's saying, did you use foul language? It just deleted your message for some weird reason. But you failed. Could you resend that last one? Could you please give me some practical hints on complex joins? Got it. Thanks, Hypergesture. Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's a little hard to know exactly where, things didn't go well for you. What I can say is I very, very rarely use foreign keys, especially as constraints, because I find that unwinding it when I need to do table maintenance or something like that is just too annoying. I've worked in environments where they used them before, but I really just don't like using them, especially again as constraints, as check constraints for other tables where you can't add this table if the value doesn't, or you can't add this record if the value doesn't exist over here. It creates a lot of mess. And in my 14 years of working for some very large companies, we never really use foreign keys. So they're good. I don't want to, I don't want to get into the why I don't use them. But let's talk about some data here. What can we talk about? I think I have some bike ride share data. Maybe the tables we can scan here. Nah. Airbnb. Maybe Airbnb data. No. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna jump into Live SQL for this. livesql.oracle.com. Hopefully it will let me log in here. And you can do this right now too. You don't have to have SQL Server installed. As you can see, it's an IDE right in my browser. I do have a video on us working with the data that's in these schemas here, because they provide sample data for you. So if you go to livesql.oracle.com, you will be able to follow along with what we're about to do. So I think employees, I think if we use the HR database, you can see that there's human resources, there's Olympics data, there's, I can't remember what these stand for, customer orders. Let's say customer orders, okay? We'll go ahead and start there. So we'll say select, I hate to do this, and maybe I don't have to, so I'm gonna say select like this. I'll right click it, there we go. And here I'll say where, well no, you know what, it's not my database, I can select everything. If you're a beginner, I would use row num for this, where row num is equal, you know, less than or equal to. If you're in Postgres, you can use limit. If you're in SQL Server, you can use top, etc., etc. So, okay, we're using customers. I hate the way it writes this query, but hey, it's free. I can't complain, right? From customers, and then we want all the orders for each customer, right? So let's understand what we're doing here right now. How many customers are there? Just lots and lots of customers. Let's pretend that the question was something like, give me all the customers and their orders. So normally you'd say something like inner join co.orders, and if you're savvy, you're already seeing where things might go wrong here. I'm going to give this table an alias of O and customers C. If you're wondering why I didn't put as, it's because Oracle does not accept as at the table level as an alias marker. You have to just say space whatever you want the alias to be. It only allows it in the column aliases. So just keep that in mind. Now, to join them, I need an on clause, right? I need on C dot customer ID equals, and let's explore orders really quick. Where is orders? Oh, there it is. C on O dot customer ID, like that. So if I have that joined, what I can do is say my next column can be O dot order ID. And how about a store ID? O dot store ID. Now I know I'm going to get multiple orders, so what I'm going to actually do is say order by C dot customer ID. And already I'm going to get an error because this customer ID is actually ambiguous. So I need to make sure I specify C dot customer ID. And normally I just go through here and just specify the table for all the columns so that there's no more ambiguity. So let's see what it gives us. Okay. So as you can see, what it gave us is a list of customers. Let me, can I remove this? What does that say? No, it just says redirect. I don't think I can, oh, there we go. I can remove it. Okay. So as you can see, for every customer, we now have a customer, and for every order, we have a record too. So Tammy Bryant is one customer, but Tammy Bryant has 5 orders. So now we're getting everything. But what about customers that do not have any orders? So if I'm a customer and I have no orders, and I still want to return that, then I would make sure that my inner is a left instead. And this is usually pretty basic stuff. However, where a lot of people will usually get sort of tricked is if I put a where clause, if I were to say a where clause on the store ID, on the O.store ID equals 1, my left join, because there's a where clause that's from the joined table, my left join is automatically converted by the engine into an inner join. So now I will only get customers that have orders at store 1, even though I have a left join in here. So that's something really important to note. A lot of people get caught with that on where clauses, on havings, all that good stuff. Now I'm trying to understand how foreign keys tripped you up. A couple tables with missing foreign keys, and I couldn't write proper inner and left. I mean, what I would say is learn to build the ability to not be dependent on foreign keys for relationship. And I actually have 2 videos on creating an ERD using either ChatGPT or using Live SQL from Oracle. Both of those videos are available on my YouTube channel. And basically what I do is for one of them, I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, ChatGPT, I'm going to give you a topic. You're going to give me back a set of 10 queries. You're not going to tell me anything about the tables. You're not going to tell me anything about the relationships. I want to do the relationships on my own. I'm going to build an ERD, a complete map of the database only from your queries. Nothing else. No table information, no data type information. And what we did was we built it out. We used sort of what we could assume based on the queries themselves, based on the joins that we saw in the queries, based on columns that were named the same. We used that to build our ERD. So I can definitely recommend those videos. I'm not just trying to recommend myself. It's just I did it with the sole purpose of answering questions like yours. And then use Live SQL or Azure SQL DB. It's also free. Use that to practice. Build your own tables. Build some foreign keys in there if you want to. They allow you to do so. And try to practice without foreign keys. I don't like creating a dependency, both mindset based and database based with foreign keys, but that's just me. There's a lot of people who love using foreign keys. I'm just not a fan. I'd rather do that logic in like stored procedures. That's where I prefer it. Okay, we are being triggered for an ad break by Twitch, so I'm gonna go and take an ad break. Whoever subscribed, you are now going to be able to at least watch me be horrible at GeoGuessr for a couple minutes. The rest of you, we will be back in 3 minutes. I want to make sure I take that break so that nobody misses anything, and we will be right back. I'll see you soon. Okay, GeoGuessr time. First, I'm going to take a sip of water because I haven't drank any water in a while. Stay hydrated, my friends. If you're here in the chat, you can force me to hydrate using my I think channel points. Can't you? I don't know. It's been a while since I've checked those. Maybe I should change them away. You can also change the lights back there by doing like exclamation white, exclamation red. There's the hydrate. There's the hydrate. Hypergesture says thank you so much. You're very welcome. Okay, let's go to turbo mode and watch me embarrass myself. That's India. I don't know what that is. Somewhere in Europe. It is somewhere in Europe. I just got the wrong place in Europe. I don't know what this one is. Somewhere here? Sure. That's San Francisco. What do we have here? Oh my god. I don't know. Somewhere in Europe again. Yeah. That's definitely somewhere in Europe. That's the UK. I don't know. Somewhere in Russia. Nope, wrong. Man, this looks like Spain. No, also wrong. I'm very terrible at this. That's Italy. No. Oh god, Mexico. Please. Oh no. That was rough. Okay, so we can do historical buildings, or towers. I'm gonna go with historical buildings. Where am I? Souvenir. Ooh. I don't know. I don't know what that is either. Am I in Italy? I can't. No, that can't be Italy. No. Romania? Am I about to embarrass myself? Listen, I'm terrible at this game. I told you that already. It's your fault for watching me play. I'm gonna go with Romania, if I could find Romania. I could have sworn. Let's do Romania. Nope, that's Romania up here. Guess. No, Estonia, of course. Because, you know, Beaches. I'm more comfortable over here. Why is this like cartas dado? Okay. Problemas. Oh, this is Portuguese. This is Portuguese. Problemas no amor o negocios. Okay. So I'm gonna go for the standard Rio de Janeiro here. I'm so sorry for anyone who actually knows where this is. I'm just going for Rio. It was at least the right country. It was at least the right country, but Fortaleza. Okay, sorry to my Brazilian friends. Let's do one more, and then we can head back because folks are back from ads. So we will do bridges. And of course, that's the bridge that I have no idea what it's called, right? That's Stat Bridge. How do you not know that bridge? I know it. I'm just making sure you do. I have no idea. It's a bridge. Okay, let's try to be actually like good at this. We have coastline. We have, I think this is a Citroen or a Renault, one of the two. So I'm wanting to say this is somewhere in Europe, at least. Do we have any road signs that we can use? No, we just have this van that I can barely make out what it's saying. Our coastline is cool. Is that a flag? I don't think so. I think it's just like a warning for boats that are too high. It's a nice coastline though. I don't know. We'll go somewhere in Europe. It's a coastline, and it's a pretty long bridge. I almost want to say it's something like here. What is this? Denmark and Sweden? No. Yeah, Denmark and Sweden. We'll say, why not? It's this bridge. Yeah, I mean, that was terrible. I should have known by all the Renaults and Citroens that we were in France, but there was no way I was going to guess that one. All right, great. Let's go back to where we actually sort of know what we're doing. All right, so hypergesture, I hope that answered it, but I would really I think practice is the only way you're going to be comfortable not using keys. So just keep that in mind. Go to Live SQL, explore the data sets that they already have there available for you. Try to create an ERD. Again, you can follow along my videos if you see them. If you just search for like ERD, SQL Dev DBA ERD or something, you should be able to find it there. Let me see if I can actually quickly find it for you. Let's see. We might be able to find it. youtube.com/@SQLDevDBA. And let's see if we can find ERD. Okay. So this SQL interview challenge, that's one of them. It'll help you get way more comfortable. So that video. And then this one right here, we also did an ERD with the IMDb database as we explored it. That was a live stream, and so was the first one. And then this one right here is how to practice with Live SQL. So either one of those two videos will help you out. This one's for test and dev data. That one is pretty cool. So you can try that one too, but hopefully at least one of those will help you out. Okay. All right, so let's go back to PowerShell. And again, I think what we were doing was running our CSV file. Did we actually get to run that one? Well, regardless, the way we built our script out, even if we didn't get to run it, the beauty of this is that it will auto-create. But the bad thing is that if the file already exists, it will overwrite that file. Unless you do a special tweak to the format. So let's go ahead and just run it. And as you can see, it ran successfully, but because I didn't print anything, we didn't get anything on the screen, just, hey, it worked. And we're back to normal, right? But if I go check the files, we can now see stations results, ENG, sorry, this one, is now present. It's now present as of 1 minute ago, or less than 1 minute ago, because we just created it. So what we're going to do is right click and we're going to open it with Notepad++. I know you're tempted to open it with Excel. I know you're tempted to open it with Excel. I'm watching you. Please don't. Just don't. If you're going to, that's fine. Create a copy of the file, update the name to something like this file's about to be ruined.csv, and then open it with Excel. Because the first thing you're going to get is Excel goes, oh, hey, I see you open the CSV. I'm going to go ahead and ruin it for you. And then I'm going to auto save it so it'll be forever ruined. Is that cool? And then you're like, not really. And it's okay. I did it anyway. Bye. And so Excel always wants to take your job. Please don't let it. Just open the file with Notepad++. Heck, even Notepad. If you want any text editor that you like and you trust, I prefer Notepad++ because it's programmer driven and it's programmer focused. It helps me out. I've been using it for many, many years, and it really, really works well. Now, here's our file. Right there. That's our file. As you can see, it's a CSV file, but instead of commas, I have what? Vertical bars or pipes. It's a pipe delimited file. And I said earlier that I was going to explain why I chose to do this. Is there anyone out there that can guess? I'll give you, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Is there anyone that can guess why I chose the vertical bar as my delimiter and not a comma as is standard? I don't think I have any like countdown things on my stream deck that I could use, like a 10-second timer or something. No, all I have is this whoosh. That's all I have. And the F1 sound, like this. That's all I have. Okay, so why did I do that? Why do I delimit my comma separated files with a pipe instead of a comma? It is because I want to make sure that any commas in the values are not treated as separate columns. You can see that very clearly right here with the station name. This is Abu Dhabi International, comma, AE. Now, some would argue, well, the quotes are what take care of that. Sure, but sometimes they don't work. Or sometimes they don't get auto-generated, and I wanted to just make sure that there was no ambiguity at all. I've been working with data for 14 years. I've seen maybe once that someone had a pipe value as an actual value. But I've seen files every day where the commas are inside the values and they're part of the value. City, state, right? City, province, province, country, etc. They're always part of the data set. So that's why for me, I prefer to do it as vertical pipes instead. So we're done with that. You can see there's vertical pipes, and you can see that the columns are at the very top. Elevation, min date, max date, latitude, etc. That's all there. So we're good to go. We can use this file now. Now here, normally, is where I would go ahead and use DBATools to upload this file into SQL Server. Because we have it, we would upload the file into SQL Server. Oh, actually, sorry. Stop for a second. I mentioned that it will always overwrite the file when you run this. So again, when I run it, it's going to overwrite the file. There it is, reloaded. It's going to keep overwriting the file. The last file was written at 1254, and now we have a new file at 1258. You can avoid this in one of two ways. Number one, you can have the file name be dynamic and use timestamps, like whatever the current date and time is, you can have that file name if you generate a variable to do so in PowerShell. Or you can keep adding to the file instead of overwriting it any time. To do that, all you have to do is use the append qualifier in PowerShell. That's it, and it'll keep adding. So let's try that. And now we can see that the file was edited at 1259, but watch the size, 108 kilobytes. I'm going to run it one more time. 161 kilobytes. 215. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger because we keep adding to the file. You're going to want to use append when you program this PowerShell script to loop through all the pages until it gets to the last page, because you're going to want to keep adding all the stations to the bottom of the file. For us, we only want the first 50. So I'm going to comment out the append for now. We only want the first 50 stations. That's what's easy to work with for now. So you can see I reran that and the file came right back down to 54 kilobytes instead. So it only has the 50 records. You can see that right here when you scroll all the way. Oh, no. Oh, it only has 500. Sorry. It only has 500 records. That's what we asked it for. So you can see it has 501 lines. The first line is the column names. Okay, so again, normally I would start my process of importing the data through PowerShell into SQL Server, but PowerShell's been acting up today and it doesn't want to do it. So we're just going to walk through the motions, and then I'll go ahead and import it a different way and show you that way instead. All right, so what I would do is I would normally use DBATools. So here I'm going to say use DBATools, import DBA CSV to import into SQL Server. That's my comment. And let me sort of go to DBATools.io really quick, just to show you what I'm on about. DBATools is a free, that's right, free PowerShell module that is available to anyone. They don't charge any money, and it is vast. And when I say vast, these are just the sections that it has. These are all the different commands that you have at your disposal with DBATools. Now, it does only work with SQL Server and Azure SQL DB. So there is that. If you want something like this for MySQL, I'm sure maybe libraries exist, but DBATools is specific for SQL Server. However, there is a special command. I'm just going to search for the word CSV. Where is it? Where is it? Import DBA CSV right here. And basically, it lets you import a CSV straight into SQL Server, and you can specify like the SQL instance, the database, the table name, or if you just specify a folder instead of a full file path, if you say the path is a folder, it will iterate through every single one of those CSVs and import them all into SQL Server with one line of code. It's really, really cool. Let me see if I can find an example of that right here. Imports every CSV in the file server CSV's file path. And here you just specify a folder and it'll import every CSV in that folder to one or many SQL servers. It's up to you. It'll auto create the table if it doesn't exist. Now, fair warning, when you do auto create the table, it's going to be nvarchar max for every column because it doesn't care about data types. It just wants to import the data as fast as possible using SQL bulk copy, I think is what the documentation says. Yeah, SQL bulk copy, which is right here in .NET. So just a warning that that's what it does. So this is how you would get the data in. Unfortunately, I'll show you that it doesn't work for me, unfortunately, not today anyway. Import DBA CSV, and then I would say I would reuse the same file path that I used to save the file, right? The path is this, and the SQL instance. Why isn't IntelliSense coming up? Oh my god. Let's try that again. Import dash DBA CSV, then dash path equals, nope, I don't need the equals. Dash SQL instance would be, in my case, I have some on-prem servers, micro PC 1, 2, or 3, because I have 3 SQL servers. So it would be micro PC 1. Then you say credentials, and you can use a PowerShell function called get credential, and it'll prompt you for credentials. I'll show you what that looks like. I would use also the database command The database command would be something like, oh, it's already trying to run. I'm going to hit cancel on that. The database command, or the database I would run would be like NOAA weather, I think is what I called it. Let's see. Yeah, NOAA weather. Go back to PowerShell. And then the auto create table is, again, it'll auto create the table for you, and it'll just name it after your file. That's an important thing to know, is it'll just name the table after your file name, or you can give it a table name. So like that, table, and give it a table name. It's like NOAA Twitch English or something like that. I can name the table. However, again, one thing I do want to warn about is that when you use this, it will create everything, all the columns in varchar max or mvarchar max. And that is, again, for efficiency's sake and just to not run into any issues. I'm going to run this and you'll see that it just completely fails. Let me try with my SSIS user. I think I'm getting like some weird, yeah. Oh, okay. Let's see if I can try. Delimiter. I'm gonna use the delimiter is equal to, I think, like this pipe and like that. It might actually let us today. Let's find out. Nope, that's a failure. I was expecting. It's been doing that all day. So on you, it probably won't. If you, DBATools' website has great links or great documentation on how to install. All you have to do is like just say install-module DBATools, click yes to all on everything, and it'll install it automatically for you. So that's really useful. But let's say you can't do that. Where are you right now? Well, number one, you either don't have a SQL Server or any particular database engine, and you just want to jump straight into Power BI with those CSVs. You can do that. And that's literally why I take down these CSVs and download them as CSVs first before pushing them into SQL servers. For folks like you, if you don't have any databases available to you and you just want to jump straight into Power BI, you can do that. No problem. It's available for you already in Power BI. Power BI accepts files like CSVs. So you can just jump straight in. In fact, if you want, you can use the chapters along the bottom here if you're watching on YouTube to go ahead and just jump to that section, and don't worry about us. We'll be fine in SQL Server. Okay, so if you do have SQL Server and for some reason you can't get DBATools to work, let's just go ahead and use our standard import and export wizard. You could also do this in SSIS, that sort of thing. I'm going to go ahead and just create a brand new database, and I'm going to call it NOAA Weather ENG. The owner is going to be SA because I don't like anyone except SA to own my databases. My file path is usually going to be something in a different drive than my OS. This computer right here, this particular SQL Server does not have any additional drives, so I won't be allocating it there, but usually I will have it on a different drive. Or maybe it does. Probably not. Anyway, the logical name of the database is NOAA Weather ENG. I have also a log file. However, now that we are saying the log file, I'm going to go ahead and change my recovery model from full to simple. Why? Because I am not going to take transaction log backups every 15 minutes or every 5 minutes or every hour, whatever. I don't care about losing data between big backups. So I will keep it in simple. That means I don't have to back up my transaction logs. I can just back up the database. My transaction log will automatically truncate and it won't fill up my C drive. Please make sure you change this to simple if you do not care about having backups every X amount of minutes and you only care about having the daily backups or whenever it is that you take your full backups. Otherwise, your drive will fill up if you don't start backing up your transaction log. All right, and other than that, since I stream in Spanish as well, I would normally and because we're dealing with worldwide data, I am actually going to change this. I'm going to change the collation to, where is it? SQL. Is it Latin or is it SQL? I always forget what this is. Finnish, Danish. Oh my God, where is it? Cyrillic, Slovenian. I thought it was like SQL Latin. Or is it Latin SQL? Latin, Laos, Latin general, CS, case sensitive would be CS, but I want CI, AI. I thought there was a different one than this. Let me double check these, like what they are. Okay, SQL Latin. Yeah, I could have sworn it started with SQL. Let me see. Maybe I'm just impatient and was scrolling too fast. There it is. SQL Latin 1 general. And then I want CP1 CI AI. Why? Because I want my case sensitivity to be off, and I want my accent sensitivity to also be off. I deal with a lot of special characters in Spanish, for example, and I want to make sure that if I have a special character with an accent and I have one without an accent, that I can easily search both of them at the same time. You can change this at the query level. For me, it's just a lot more convenient to change them at the database level. And because we're dealing with worldwide data, not just US data, I also want to make sure my accents are insensitive here. So I'm going to hit OK. And now we have our database. It's NOAA Weather ENG. I'm going to right click here and refresh. And we can see that we have our NOAA Weather, which is the one I did for Spanish, and then NOAA Weather ENG. So what am I going to do? I'm going to right click and I'm just going to say tasks, import data, and use the SQL Server import wizard. Now I click next. My data source is going to be a flat file. And here, this is an interview for me anyway. This is how I interview people. I give them a file, I tell them to import it, and I tell them to make a report, whether it's SSRS or PowerBI. So this right here is sort of a cheat code to my interviews. I go straight to the file name. As you can see, there's no data here. This trips up people. They don't realize that they have to search for a CSV file. And really what I'm looking for in my interviews is muscle memory. If you do this a lot, your hand will automatically go down here to change it to a CSV. So I'm going to look for the ENG one, which was today at 1:06. I'm going to open that. And now we have to get working. My text qualifier, as you can see right here, my text qualifier is quotes. Phantom Cap, buenas, espero que estés muy bien. Ahora mismo estamos haciendo el directo en inglés, pero cualquier pregunta que tengas en español o inglés, adelante con ella. Si acaso creo que voy a estar en español mañana, pero bienvenido. Espero que estés muy bien. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. So as you can see, we have quotes right here surrounding all our values. Those are our text qualifiers. And so we're going to say that a double quote is our text qualifier. We do not want to skip any rows because they contain the column names. As you can see, column names are in the first row. And everything else is pretty good except for the columns right here. I want to make sure that SQL Server automatically understood that my column delimiter is a vertical bar. Sometimes it doesn't, and you need to make sure it does. If it doesn't, you'll see all the values smushed together into one column. All you have to do is change the delimiter, which you can do right here. Some people like a colon, some people like commas, because commas the normal standard. Tabs, some people like tabs instead. That's all well and good. Vertical bar, it automatically recognizes it, so we are good to go here. Now, here is where I get like 80% of the people, I would say. 80% of the people, I get them right here. And why is it? Well, it's because the standard data type that SQL Server gives you is string with a length of or a width of 50. And I sneak in values in my files, in my demo files, that are way bigger than 50, like 200. And so they just go right on through. Everything looks okay. Sometimes they'll even change the string or to a date and all that stuff, and that's fine. But I always make sure at least one of my string values has way more than 50. Why? Because of the fact that they'll leave this at 50 and then they'll keep going through the wizard. They'll get an error and then I look to see what they do with that error. It's okay to get it. That doesn't really remove any points from you. But what you do with that information, with the error information, that's where a lot of people divert. Some people will just freak out, and unfortunately, I'm sure it's like the pre-interview or the interview jitters and stuff like that, but some people will just freak out and sort of freeze. Other people will try again, they'll change a couple things, but all you really have to do is give everything like 500 or 5,000 or 1,000. And how do you give everything that value? Well, you go to elevation, which is my first column, then you hold shift and you go to longitude, which is my last column. And now you can set the values for everything. So here, let's say I want to do 1,000. Just make it as big as possible. Why? Because you need to explain to me that all you're doing is making a staging table just to get the data in to the database, and you'll work through the actual table later. That's always my what I look for, is for you to create a staging data where you have the data inside SQL Server, you can run queries against it, make sure it's okay, and then you can go ahead and put all the data into the final table. So we're going to go ahead and import everything with varchar 1000. We'll do a preview. The data looks good to me. Let's see if we don't get any errors. So we'll hit next. Then we'll go to our destination. I'm going to pick Microsoft OLE DB provider for SQL Server, Micro PC1, and I have to log in through a particular user. At this point, if you've seen my video about Azure SQL, which is right there in the chat, I have a video on how to install, or actually no, this is just documentation, but if you go to my YouTube channel, I have a video about how to install quote unquote Azure SQL DB. You can put it into Azure SQL DB instead. In fact, that video includes scripts that you can do or use to just import the data straight in. You don't even have to run this process. It just gives you SQL statements that you can run to get this exact data into Azure SQL DB. Okay, so password. I have to make sure I don't speak my password out loud. That's always a thing. Okay, and now we want to name our table. I'm gonna name this staging underscore stations results. English, whatever. Or I can just say stations results. There we go. I'm just gonna preview it one more time to make sure everything looks good. And then I'll hit next, next, and finish. Did we get errors? Nope. 500 successful rows. That's exactly what we had. I'm gonna go ahead and close this. And now when I right click and refresh tables, what do I get? I get a table. I get my staging table. And again, it has varchar 1000 for all the data types. But remember, we had a plan. Didn't we do an ERD with the correct data types that we want? Yeah, we absolutely did. So let's use that now to build a historical table, to build like the real table for this. Where's my LucidChart stuff? Right here. So we can see that stations is right here. Look at all the nice columns it had. Unfortunately, I don't think I can copy everything here, all the text. Let me see what happens when I try to copy everything and just paste it right here. I don't think it will. It sure does. Okay, so it does give me the actual field names and data types. So that's pretty great. I just copied the object and pasted it here, and it copied the text. So that's great. Okay, so the table is called stations. Let's sort of dissect this a little bit. The table is called stations. My first one is ID. My second one is name, elevation, elevation unit, latitude, longitude, min date, max date, and data coverage. There's most of my create statement already, right? So what I'm going to do is say create table. I'm just going to fill in the blanks. dbo.stations. I'll open up this parentheses. I'm going to tab all of these in, and then I'm going to close my parentheses. And now I just go through. I already have my data types that I wanted. So I'm just going to add commas here. Comma, comma, comma. If you skip the ERD part, remember, use your chapters down here to see how we made it. And also the ERD, a PDF of the ERD is going to be included with a link or in a link in the description below in this video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch, I like you more. I like you more if you're on Twitch right now. Just know that. But catch this on YouTube again and you'll see all the links. Okay, create table stations. Here's all the columns. It's sort of like warning us about something, like the not null is not specified. I don't really care about that right now. If you don't want an identifier to be blank ever, yeah, you could absolutely say not null here just to enforce the constraint. I'm not going to do that right now. In fact, I'm just going to add not null and primary key here just to make the primary key an ID. I mentioned earlier I'm not a huge fan of keys. I'm not a huge fan of foreign keys. Primary keys, yes, I do not want my tables to be a heap or just a mess of data, so I do like to have primary keys where able and just index them as appropriate as well. All right, so we are good to go. I'm going to go ahead and create this table. There it is. And now my goal is to get the data from the staging table over to the final table, this DBO stations. So what I'm going to do is just create a brand new query. Then I'm going to right click on that tab and I'm just going to say new horizontal tab group. Now, why? So that I can have them side by side. What I'm going to do is select this right here and I can see all of my rows. And I'm going to go ahead and build an insert statement on the right side to take the data from the staging table to the final table. So how do I do that? Well, I like to cheat. I'll go to my Object Explorer and I'll refresh my tables. And then I'll right click and select top 1000. And I already have my select statement. So let me just replace that over to the new tab group. And this one can just stay blank. I'll just use this one instead. I get all these red squiggly lines. That's just IntelliSense hasn't been refreshed. I'm going to hold Control-Shift-R to refresh the data. And here we go. Now we are good to go. Now I'm going to select that and I see nothing because there's no data in this table. It just exists, right? So to do what I need to do, what I'm going to do is just change this select statement a little bit to the staging table instead. Why? Because this has the order that I want to see the data in already. And here, what I'm going to do is actually make sure that this runs. So this runs, and I'll go ahead and remove the top 1000 here, even though there's only 500 records. I just want to make sure it runs. Now, I'm going to add an insert into, and then I take this final table's name, and I say paste here. And now I'm going to open my parentheses and close them. And inside my parentheses, what am I going to put? I'm going to put this select statements columns and put them here. And now I know I'm bringing in every single column in the same exact order. I have a special extension in my SSMS called Redgate SQL prompt. So when I click on a column up here, I can actually see a highlight of the column that corresponds to it in the select statement. But if you don't have this, this is the easiest way to make sure your columns align, is just use a select statement. So remember, my data types are already correct here. They're already the ones that I want. And I'm going to go ahead and format this because it looks terrible. There we go. But the ones I have here in my staging table, some of them might have issues. It's almost a guarantee because I did this last weekend and we had issues, but I'm going to show you how to resolve them if they do. So I'm going to try to insert all the records, and let's see what happens. Maybe it just runs and that'll be clean. Nope. Error converting data varchar to numeric. That's all you get. That's all you get. Now, what are the steps? Again, what I look for is the resolution. What do you do to resolve this? And what we can do is we can find any column whose destination was a numerical data type, like integer, decimal, etc., and see what their values are in the staging table. So how do we do that? I'm going to go ahead and just comment this out on the left here. And the columns that immediately catch my attention are elevation, latitude, longitude, and data coverage. So we're going to take those one at a time. Okay. Now, how can I even know which ones are going to have error converting. Well, there is a very special function in SQL Server and in Oracle. I think it's called default or something. Null default. I can't remember what it is. But basically, all you have to do is say, hey, go ahead and return all these values. But you're going to try to cast it. And let's start with what? Elevation, right? We said we were going to start with elevation. So as my next column here, instead of just elevation, I'm going to cast elevation as, oh God, it's trying to do like aliases. So I'm just going to say this is as SSR. So that way it's short. Cast SSR.elevation as whatever the destination data type is. So here it's going to be decimal 18.4. Does it let us? Does it let us? Let's find out. Nope, we get that same error. So here's the complexity. Is like, okay, well, I know that this one's wrong, but I don't know which values are causing it. How can I know which values are causing it? Well, this cast function has a modifier, and it's really a completely separate function, but it has a modifier called try-cast. What try-cast will do is it will try to cast it as whatever data type you indicate, but if it can't, it will just return null. Boop, it just returns null and that's it. So let's see what happens when we do that. Now we can see that we get all our data back, but there may be some values that have a null next to it, right? Look, right here, it was not able to cast this value as a null. And you're like, okay, well, that's great, but I have like thousands of records. How am I gonna have to just keep scrolling? No, no, no. You can copy this try-cast function and put it as a where clause and say where try-cast elevation as decimal is null. This will return only the values that are causing trouble. That's super important and it's super useful. I used to do this thing where I would like bubble sort, where I would say like, okay, try to return the first 50 records. Okay, if the first 50 records return, then I know that the error is not in, the first 50 records. Now try to return, the second 50 where they're not in the first 50. It's not necessary. You can just use try-cast. There you go. Okay, so what do we need to do to elevation to fix it? Well, any record that has elevation as basically blank, why don't we set it either to null or to 0? I prefer null, just so I know that there's no value. I didn't get a value. If I put 0, maybe it'll think that the elevation is actually 0. You could actually just try to see what the elevation is at this latitude and longitude. That's cool too. For now, we're just going to reset it to null. So how do I do this? Well, I need to first identify any records that have a blank elevation. So I'm going to select star from this table where, if I could learn to spell where, elevation equals empty string. And there they are. Now, I wanted to isolate these first and make sure I grabbed them correctly. Now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to say update. And I'm going to update SSR because that's the alias I gave it. Update SSR, set SSR.elevation equals null. Using the same from and where clause. And I should expect 3 records here to be updated. Let's see. 3 records updated, or 3 rows updated. All right. So now when we try our try-cast again, now we still get those. So you'll still get the 3 rows, but it's because they're null, and that's okay. What I'm going to do is just cast this over again. That looks good. And now my insert into, I'm going to try it again and see if it works. And it sure did. You might run into other ones, right? You might run into like null or empty, min date, max date, data coverage, that whole thing. That's okay. Just work these using the same method with the try-cast or try-convert. If you're a convert person, you can use try-convert instead. Just work at it. Just work at it and you'll get it. You'll be able to isolate them and change the values accordingly. So just keep that in mind. Okay, now we are ready to move on into Power BI because we have our table data. Right? Or not right? Wrong. Not right. Why are we not ready for Power BI yet? Well, we do have our data in a table, and that's all well and good. But I am not a fan of giving Power BI access to tables. Why? Because there could be records that I need to obfuscate. There could be records that I need to just filter out completely based on a date, based on a customer ID, based on something. And if I give Power BI direct access to the table, then all the filtering and control is going to be at the Power BI level. And if I need to change it, it's going to be at the Power BI level. I need to redeploy the data source, which some of you know it takes like an hour to refresh sometimes. You don't have to do that. You can just create a view to serve Power BI the view instead of the entire table and give it access to that view. So what are we going to do? I'm going to go ahead and script this table out, this entire select statement. That looks good. I'm going to copy that and paste it over here. Great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, no, that's not it. I'm going to create a view and call it dbo.vw NOAA stations as, and then I'll do a quick created by script so people in 5 years know it was me. That's making their life miserable. I'll do SQL Dev DBA here. I will do 3/1/2025. That's right. Rest of the civilized world or civilized world. I do not. I use the month day, but when I'm doing file names, I'll do it like something like this. That's usually how I do file names. If you've seen the file names in the description in the Google Drive below, you'll usually see that I have my dates like that. All right, created for this is live on Twitch, and the description just has, I don't know, NOAA weather stations. There we go. All right, so we're ready to go. We are in the right database, NOAA weather ENG. We're going to go ahead and deploy that. Now, if you're looking to know why I prefer those, I actually have an entire video. That video is right there. Or no, my YouTube channel is there. Just search for like something like Gateway. No, what is it again? I don't remember what it is. It's something about how to connect Power BI to SQL Server. And you'll see like a big clickbaity thumbnail, like stop doing this or something like that. And it's basically how I like to give access to Power BI through views instead, or procedures instead of direct access to tables, because of all the issues that it causes in my experience. You're welcome to do whatever you please. For me, I find it really easy. It's really flexible. It's really secure. And it just makes things so much easier for me. So that's my opinion there. You're more than welcome to have a different one if you so desire. Okay, we're going to go ahead and create the view. Or did we already? Yeah, I think we did already. So since we've created it, now what we're going to do is recreate this report here. Where is it? This report here. This report is pretty basic. It just takes the latitude and longitude and makes a map out of it. It has the name of the station, the percentage of data coverage, just some top line figures, and you can filter by the country, you can filter by the station ID, or you can filter by the station name. Those are all there and available for you as well. And you can filter by the data coverage too if you so desire. And then we have a full detail page that just, I facilitate this for the folks who usually look at a report and go, I want to see this in Excel. That's absolutely fine. I know it's like a meme and a joke and stuff in the BI world, but the reality is if you give them this page by default, they'll never ask you. And so you don't have to worry about, you know, the depression that comes with that question, because they're perfectly okay to just pull the data themselves and analyze it in Excel. Hey, that means people are using your report and using your data. That's okay. I never think it's a bad thing when someone's like, hey, can I get this in Excel? It's like, yeah, it's all, just go to the Excel page, or the export page, and you'll see a full grid of all of the data. Good to go. Nobody really ever asks me anymore because they know I always include that page. So anyway, we're going to recreate this report here. And if you haven't seen the report, hopefully, oh God, I forget if I'm on my Mac or my PC. If you don't have that report, it's right here over there in the chat now. You can feel free to open it on your mobile computer device or on your desktop, and it should open up and you can play around with it. All right, we are going back to our Windows PC, and we're going to pop open Power BI Desktop. Now, I do have this data in Azure SQL DB as well. In fact, I have my video about Azure SQL DB. Includes a link to a file that you can use to import that data into Azure SQL DB as well. I'm going to go ahead and click a blank report, but the database that I'm going to use is an on-premise database that I have here in my home lab. All right, so transform data. No, we're going to go to get data. Get data, and here, if you don't have a database engine, that's okay. Remember, we built this as a CSV as well, so you're more than welcome to just use your CSV. In fact, I'm going to do both just as the import process, and then I'll just continue with my SQL Server data. So let's import the CSV first. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and just say get data and then text or CSV. And then here is where I'm going to look for my CSV file. As you can see, it's not here. It's actually in a different drive. In my C drive, I think it's in NOAA data output, and there it is. I'm going to use stations results ENG, which is the file that we imported into SQL Server. But if you don't have SQL Server or any other database, you can still use it. And as you can see, it recognized the delimiter as well, because all my columns, all of my values are separated. I don't like to use data type detection. I like to use based on entire data set if it's small enough, just because it doesn't capture everything if I don't. So as you can see, it recognized the delimiter is custom and it's a vertical pipe. It automatically did that for me. You can, at this point, transform the data. I prefer to just load it and do my transformations after. And there we go. It's loaded. Now, sometimes people will start reports with a CSV and then need to transition them over to SQL Server or Oracle or anything else. Sometimes that, like when that happens, people think they need to rebuild the entire report because they've already built so much stuff. You don't have to do that. I have a video. Now I have so many videos that I can actually just point people to videos, which is great because they're sort of working for me all the time. I have a video that shows you how you can disconnect from a CSV and transfer the data set into a SQL Server data set. You can do this with pretty much any data source or any data type as long as you follow the same steps. That's available on my YouTube channel. Just search for like swap data source or change data source or something like that. And it's, again, some clickbaity thumbnail that just says like stop rebuilding your reports or something, I think is what I chose. Okay, so we've imported our CSV. That's great. We're not going to actually work with this data. We're going to work with the SQL Server data. So to do that, we're going to click that get data again, and we are going to go to SQL Server. All right, the server we're going to use is MicroPC1, and the database is going to be called NOAA Weather ENG. However, this user might not have access to it yet. So what I'm going to do is add SSIS user to it. Let's see if I can edit the user. To give them access to this database. Where is it? NOAA Weather ENG, and make them a DB owner. I think they're a sysadmin, so they should be able to access anything now that I think about it. But that's just me here. I don't do that at work. I usually have a Power BI user, and I think I actually have one right here. Yeah, Power BI user. That user I do need to give access. That's what I recommend. I'm just doing this right now as a little shortcut. All right. You can choose import or direct query. If you don't have data that updates every like 5 seconds, don't ever use direct query. I don't know why I see so many people online using it. It's really not necessary. Just use import. Your reports will be much faster. Your stakeholders will love you, and they don't have to wait for like reports to refresh every time they use a filter or something. Do not use do not use direct query unless, again, you have to refresh data every 5 seconds, which usually you don't. If it's every hour, that's okay. You can still use import and just refresh it once every hour during the workday. That's okay too. All right, hit OK. And now I see my VW NOAA stations. That's the one I want to do, because what does that mean? That means I'll be able to change things about the view and not actually have to change my Power BI report at all. I can like obfuscate the entire elevation column and just mark it null in the view, but my Power BI report doesn't care. It's just going to keep humming along and keep refreshing just fine. So I'm going to check VW NOAA stations, click load, and this is the data we're going to work with. Now, it didn't ask me for data types. Why? Because it inherited some of the data types from my actual view. So you can see that these are now dates. But something that it didn't do well was my elevation. It didn't write it as the correct number type, so we're going to fix that in a second. The first thing we're going to do is create a data grid, because that's what I like to do right off the bat to make sure I have all the data I need and it looks correct. So I'll just make a big old data grid right here, and I'll start adding things in order of, I guess, importance. Here's my IDs. There they are. Here's my names. Here is my, what did I do? I think elevation and elevation unit. Now, right off the bat, you can see sum of elevation is what got added. I can right click on this and say don't summarize, and it'll not summarize it. But if you want to do that sort of permanently, you can just click on elevation right up here, and you can just say the summarization is don't summarize, and that's fine. It'll do that for you too. I don't like to do that. I like to change them at the visual level. But if you're just tired of it always bugging you with that, you can change it. All right, elevation unit got added. That's fine. Max date and min date. When I add them, you can see it automatically adds them in this whole like weird data category or hierarchy. All you have to do is right click on min date and just select the actual min date. Select this and you'll see max date. Now, I don't want them like this with weekdays, so I'm going to go here on the right for max date. I'm going to go to the format at the very top and just make sure it's month, date, and year. Same for min date up here. I think I said min date when I meant max date. Then I'm going to just select the same thing here. Now we can see shorter versions of them. And next thing to add is data coverage. Maybe I should add that right underneath like elevation unit. And again, it gave them to me as a sum. I do not want that after I switch it. I do not want that. I'm going to right click and don't summarize. And now I have the data coverage here. But something special about data coverage is, if you remember, it's actually just a percentage. So I'm going to click on data coverage up here, and I'm just going to select the percent. And now you can see that there's an actual percentage here tied to it. So instead of 0.93 or 0.73, whatever, now it's an actual percentage. And you can change how many decimal places you want. So like if you just want 1, that's okay too. We'll leave it at just 1. It's usually a bit more elegant that way as well. All right, so great. So we have all our data except latitude and longitude. We'll go ahead and do latitude and longitude. Again, adds them as a sum. Right click and remove that. But for latitude and longitude, I can actually do them as a don't summarize. And then if you look, one of the categories is latitude and longitude. So I am going to make this latitude. I'll go to longitude. I'll take away the summarize, and I'll change it to longitude. And you can see that it adds a little globe here. That helps tremendously when you add them to visuals. It knows that you might want to create a map, or you might want to deal with coordinates, that sort of thing. Okay, so we have everything we want all in this grid. We can leave this grid as like our grid page, and I can sort of do that. I'll show you why I'm doing that in a second. Just like that. Okay, great. So now we're going to create some visuals. And the first visual we're going to want to create, I'll name this like a detail and export. If you want to rename your sheet, just double click just like you do in Excel. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a new page and call it summary. Now here is where I'm going to put my maps. So I'm going to use just a standard Bing Maps. I don't want you to have to pay for maps or anything like that. We'll elongate this, and then you can see that it asked me for latitude and longitude. So I'll just put them. Latitude and longitude. There we have it. We have all our coordinates for the first 500. Remember, all we have is 500 stations, and that's okay. I'm going to format this map and just change the style to be maybe grayscale, like this. So I don't have to concentrate too much on the colors. I'm color deficient anyway. And the next thing I want to do is maybe add some color to these so that they're not just blue dots. Let me go ahead and copy the link that I had up here. Or we can just open it in Power BI. That's okay. PowerBI.com. Ooh, I'm getting a request for an ad break. Super. Okay. It's good timing because I need water. Okay. So it looks like we have color based on the data coverage. I want to say it's based on the data coverage. See how the low ones, when I hover over the red ones, it's low data coverage, and this one is like a medium data coverage. So that's what we'll go ahead and do over here. We're going to go ahead and format this, and our bubbles, the color is going to be based on a function, and that function is going to be a gradient of the data coverage. The lowest value is going to be red, like so. The middle is going to be like a light gold or a yellow, and the high data coverage is going to be like a green. And it's the sum of data coverage. Technically, it can be the sum, it can be the minimum or the maximum if they're just one value. I'll just do minimum for now and say okay. And now we can see that our data coverage is now changing the color of all of our dots. So you can see here's a red one that has super low data coverage. How do we know that? We don't, right? So what do we need to do? We need to format this visual, and we need to add right here to the tooltips, we need to add data coverage. And now I'll go ahead and do a minimum again. And now when we hover over it, we will see the data coverage, 26%. I'm going to go ahead and change that value to just data coverage percent. And now when I hover over it, I can see data coverage percent is 96.5. I actually don't need the percent, right? Because it already has percent as part of the value. So there we go. But I also want to know where this is. So all I have to do is drag the name down here as well. I'm going to say name, and I even want the country. Do we want the country? Yeah, why not? Where is the country? Ooh, I don't have it. I don't have a country. I think we ended up adding one in the view. And let's see if we can do that right after ads. I'm getting pinged for ads, so let's start them up. We'll play a little bit of GeoGuessr, and when we come back, we'll add the country code, and we'll finish off the rest of this report. Should take another 20-30 minutes, something like that. Hopefully. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I'll see you in 3 minutes. All right. If you are still here, thank you for subscribing, or great job. Twitch didn't pick you for an ad. That's pretty cool, isn't it? All right, we're going to try. We're going to try something after I take a drink here. Religious places? No, stadiums, because stadiums I get to cheat a little bit. I know, like, I don't know. I'm not going to call it. Hold on. Okay. Is this Portugal? Because this is Portuguese. Or is it Brazil? Intertours. Travel consulting. It's either Portugal or Brazil. Both of them have really nice stadiums. Cristiano Ronaldo. Campus football. Okay. Has to be Portugal. I don't know where in Portugal. We're gonna go to Lisboa just because that's all I know. And let's see if we have something here. No, I'm not even gonna. let's just drop a pin here in Lisboa and see if we can get anything else. I don't. No, I'm wasting time. What? Oh my god. Where is this? Oh my data. It literally said the name and I didn't even pay attention. Regardless, I didn't even know my data existed. I knew the Azores existed, which I think are here. Pretty sure these are the Azores. Yeah. Wow. I'm out of days in Los Angeles. Means I get to go to the airport and pick another city. Okay, let's do one more. Where should we go? Sydney? Auckland? Sydney. I don't think I've been to Sydney yet. I mean, definitely not in real life, but also not in GeoGuessr. Yes. Got my passport. What is the primary attraction at Bondi Beach? Man, I don't know. I'll go surfing. I don't know where these ceramic tiles were made. I'll go with Sweden. Yeah. What unexpected activity can be done at the bridge? I'm gonna say bungee jumping. No, climbing toward to the top. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's keep going here. Beaches. I like beaches. I don't. This is postres. This is it. Okay, I was gonna say this is Puerto Rico, but there's front plates here, so it has to be South America. It has to be South America. What does this say up here? Oh, Chile. Where in Chile? I don't know. It's definitely along a beach, right? We'll go to the beach closest to Santiago, which would be Playa Ancha, I guess, somewhere here. And let's see if we can find the city or anything. Or a sign that says, well, you are at X beach. Playa no apta para el baño. Oh, it means you can't even get in. I don't see anything else over here. Just a McDonald's. Can we find a McDonald's at this beach? Nah, I don't think so. I think I'm just wasting time. It was definitely in Chile. It was just in a completely different part of Chile. So, yeah. Okay. I think we're good. Let's go ahead and continue with our Power BI report. All right. So next thing we want to do, since we have our map, we have our data grid. Now we want to add country, because if you look, this other one had a country. And so you may be like, how did you even get the country? It's not part of the data set. Well, remember I told you the SQL Server view is what I like to use to connect it. Technically speaking, you can use Power Query for this, right? That's absolutely fine. Do your thing. But as many of you would know, you need to do your transformations as far down, as far upstream as possible, and as far downstream as necessary. And because it's possible for me to extract a country at the SQL Server level and not at the Power BI level or Power Query level, I'm just going to go ahead and do it in SQL Server. So how do I do that? Well, if you look, the name has a comma and then the country. So all I have to do is take and find the last two values that are in the country. Or sorry, in the name, and those are the country. But I should only do that if there's a comma. So let's put all that together, right? First, we're gonna go to the name and we're gonna say, hey, the country is just the right two characters of the name field, right? Name 2 as country. And that's it. But that's not it. Unfortunately, there are some where I guess it's written in a slightly different way, or just does not have it. And we want to make sure, I can't remember where it is. But there's a few of them that don't have it. So what I want to do then is say, okay, case, and basically this would be like an if statement, when char index of, let me see if name, when the name has a comma in it, meaning char index of the comma in the name is greater than 0, then you can use this. Else, just say null as country. And I think char index might be backwards. Let's see, expression to find is first and expression to search is second. So I'll put the comma here. And the comma is, why is it giving me an error now? Char index of this is greater than 0. Then the right else null end. I forgot the end. End as country. And so now it'll only give me the country if, see, these right here, this has no comma, so it has no country. Otherwise I would have just gotten RT back, or DA back, or YS back, and that's not the country. So with that case statement, I'm confirming that I don't know what the country is if there's no comma. That's my use case for it. So what does this mean? This means I can just add the column right to the view. I'm going to say or alter view, create or alter, if I learn how to spell alter, and now I'm good to go. Now all I have to do in Power BI is just refresh this, and now I'll get my country. There's my country, and I can actually add that to the map now too in my tooltips. So I'll go to country like this, and now when I hover over the map, I can see the latitude, the longitude, the data coverage, the name, and the country. So maybe for name, I'll just call this station like that, so people will know it's the name of the station. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add the country to my grid table as well, right? Right here as the first column. That way, if you want to sort by country, you can just sort by country as well. And if you have like a lookup table of all countries, you can use that too. Charlito, buenas. Charlito dice, hola, harás un directo en español hoy. No creo que hoy. No creo que quizás mañana, porque hice este mismo, lo hice el domingo pasado. Lo que estamos haciendo ahora mismo, lo hice el domingo pasado. So mañana voy a hacer algo adicional en español. No he decidido qué. Si acaso va a ser una fuente adicional de esta fuente de datos, o un dataset adicional, pero no he decidido. Si tienes algo que quieres para el de mañana, déjame saber. Si acaso en Whisper o en el Discord, si no estás en el Discord, únete ahí y me dejas saber lo que quieres ver mañana. Todavía tengo como 2 o 3 cosas que estoy decidiendo por ahora. Pero si quieres algo, me dejas saber y lo cubrimos mañana también. Pero si quieres estar aquí hoy, tienes alguna pregunta en español, adelante. Estamos en la última parte de los trámites que teníamos de esta tarea, que es crear el informe de Power BI con los datos que ya descargamos del API de NOAA. So, okay. Ya tenemos, we already have the table here. It's good to go. We added country to the table. Now we're going to go back to summary, and we're just going to add some filters. As you can see, well, let's look. So here, as you can see, this report has filters on the left. When we created it, Charlito dice, okay, muchas gracias por estar aquí. As you can see, we have the country here on the left. And we have the station ID, the station name, etc. So we're going to go ahead and just add those. Now, how do we add them? We just add a filter right here. This visual, we're going to add this filter like that. And the first one we're going to go with is country. So I'll go ahead and add the country. And as you can see, it sort of gives me like a drop down, sort of, but more of a list. I'm going to go into the settings and the format of this. And I'm just going to say slicer settings. I'll change it to a drop down. And now you can see it changed to a drop down. Not only that, but I want to make sure selection is possible with just the click of a button or the tap of a finger if you are doing this on your iPad. And by the way, this report opens on your iPad, on your iPhone. I'm going to drop a link here on the phone, or sorry, on the chat. You're welcome to use it. And if you're watching on YouTube, there will be a link to this report as well in the description. So you can tap on it, and that's what we want to enable. So you don't have to do like a 2-finger tap or whatever complex way it is. So if I want to select multiple, all I have to do is just click, and then I can release them all too, or just release them with this little rubber eraser. All right, so make it a little bit smaller like this. Get the formatting right. I want to make sure I make the background transparent as well. And I want to make sure I add the search function, which I do by clicking the ellipse, going to search. And now I can search for something. So like if I want to AN or AL, I think is the country. There, I can just search for it like that instead. All right, great. So we have the country. Now I want to do the station name. So I'm just going to copy that since I already have it formatted exactly how I want it. I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to change it to the name. So instead of the, I hate the way this works. It's so frustrating. Okay, I go to the build and the country. I want to replace that with the name. So I'll just drag in the name and then I'll remove the country. And now we have the name. So I'll call that something like station name. But if you look, like this is already starting to become a little bit big. So what I'm actually going to do is change the font size of the slicer header to 10. And I'll change the values inside the slicer to 10 as well. Maybe to 8 even. So that everything sort of fits. Okay, and I want to do the same formatting over to the station name, but I don't want to redo everything. So all I have to do is click on the one I formatted, click the format painter just like any other Office app, and then click this and bam, now I have the station name right over here. So I want to see how the country filters right here. You can see now it's just Angola. This is Argentina. So it filters the map automatically, and that's pretty cool. All right, same for the station name. If I just pick a station, boop, it just goes straight to that station in its location on the map, which is in Argentina as well. That's pretty cool. Okay, so what next? I think we have a couple other filters. The station ID, if you want to look it up by station ID. If you know the station ID already, let's pretend like you built this report as a report for NOAA. So for people who work with NOAA data, they know these station IDs by heart sometimes. Oh my God. I can't imagine how many birthdays they've forgotten if they know the station names by heart. But hey, here we are. I'm going to go ahead and replace the station name with the ID and call this the station ID. And there we go. Now we have the station ID and the station name. Now it has all the formatting. I can search for it. It has the small font already. All that is good to go. What's next? Elevation? No, data coverage. Data coverage. I didn't do elevation here because of something, but I'll go ahead and make sure I do it in our new one. Okay, station data coverage. Let's go ahead and build that. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and just add another slicer. I can't really copy paste. I can, but it would involve too much formatting, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and add another slicer. And to this slicer, I'm going to add the coverage, but I'm actually going to shrink this in size a little bit, and I'm going to change this to just say data coverage here. And here, hopefully, it sticks. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it down here or move it down here. I'll make it just as wide. And I want to make sure that this works. So there we go. If we want just like the really low version, like 50% and under, because you're a technician and you want to decide where, or a technician team, and you want to decide which ones you target for like fixing, then you can say, hey, anything from 4 to 20%, that's where I want to go, and you can see your target stations right here. If you're just analyzing these and you want to know which ones to avoid, like which ones to not include in your analysis, all you have to do is just say, hey, I only care about it if it's, I don't know, 70% or better. Those are the ones I want to actually view, right? So that's something pretty cool as well. All right. So, what was it that we wanted to do? Elevation. I'm going to copy this because I like the formatting, and I'm going to try it with elevation. Can I do that? No. You see how it like turned into a drop down instead? So we have to understand why that happened. And basically, I think it happened because some of them don't have actual values. They're zeros. So here's where you have to decide, okay, do we want this to be blanks? Or do we want them to stay blank, or do we convert them to 0? Or maybe here, what I can do is only add where elevation, and I'm going to say filters, is not blank, and apply that. And maybe now it'll turn into a between. Let's see. Go to slicer settings, and instead of vertical list, between, and now I can change it to a between. Now I'm good to go. So that is something that you can also do. Okay, we're gonna make this nice and big because I want all the real estate I can for when I go and format these things. So there we go. That's a nice format. I'm gonna just add them up right here to the bottom, and this one as well. Why? Because I'm about to add a shape to surround them. I think this might need a little bit more space here, so I'll just do that. And now I'm just going to add a shape to surround them. So the shape I want is going to be in the insert. I'm going to click shapes and just a rectangle. And then I'll go to the formatting. I'll say the shape style is a rectangle, but my rounded corners is 10. My fill is going to be like a gray, like this. And so is my border. And now I'm going to add a shadow like that. And I'm going to go ahead and surround it and put it sort of right on top of these guys right there. Now I want them to be above it, right? Not below it. So what I'll do is go to view. I'll request a selection pane if you don't have it already. And here it is over here. This shape is now going to be below everything. And now we have all of our filters right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and add them, or sorry, move them a little bit so that they're here. You can see that these are still white in background, so we need to change that really quick, which we can do pretty easily by going to slicer, size and style, turn off the background, and then size and style, turn off the background. And now we are good to go here. We're going to decrease the size of this a little bit, and maybe add a text box that says filters. If you find like a nice ASCII icon, you can do that as well, right? That has like the word filters on it. I'm just going to keep it simple and make this centered. And then just put it right here in the middle. And again, I'll remove the background. Maybe an underline would be nice, like that. I don't know. I'll keep it simple so that you can do all the fancy stuff, right? That's your job, to do all the fancy stuff. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to add a shadow to this map so it stands out just like this one did. And now we are good here. Except, or if you don't want to do that with the shadow, you can just remove the shadow from this, and you can instead put it in a box that's similar to this gray one. Just copy it and paste it and just put it right alongside there. Make it just as big as the map. Move it all the way down. And then put the map on top of it. Then you can just get rid of the border of the map or the background of the map. Maybe size and style has a background. Boom. Just like that. And now the shapes are sort of evenly spaced. Not only that, but you can also have a third one up here with sort of all your top line metrics, which is what I'm going to do. I think up here is probably best like that. Okay, so what do I want to do? I want to go ahead and move all of this over here a little bit to the left. And of course the box didn't move because I'm dumb. Here we go. Hopefully that does it like this. Good. And this as well. Like that. That looks okay. And then this guy right here, we're just going to move and extend out a little bit here. We'll extend this one out a little bit here. And then we'll extend the map out as well, so it has more space. Great. So this filters here, I'm going to go ahead and copy everything. Hopefully it's everything. Nope. Didn't include the box. So I'm just going to hold control and include the box. Copy it. And then I'm going to paste it right here on this page. And it's going to ask me, do you want to synchronize the slicers? Yes. I do want to synchronize them. And now all the slicers that I have selected on one page will automatically transfer over to the second page, which is pretty cool. Then I'm going to go ahead and just select this box and this box using control, copy and paste them. And now I have sort of the same outline or format. I'm just going to make sure I move these to the bottom always. And the table, I'm going to move it up. So now this table exists inside this box. And it looks a little bit cleaner, as you can see, sort of not rounded corners. You can fix that technically by doing something like selecting the table and then making the actual background of the table gray. You can also do size and style and just remove the background like this. That's not bad. I'm not going to focus too much on it just because this is like a export your data table. It's not really a table that's used very much. Okay, great. So now, next thing we're going to do is some top line metrics like we had here. So number of stations, number of countries, minimum elevation, max elevation, and average of elevation. Very simple stuff, right? So stations and countries first, we'll do that. And to do that, we're going to add some cards. So we'll do a card like this. We'll add ID. That's what I like to use for my identifier. So we'll do ID. We'll count distinct ID, and that's how many stations. We'll say number of stations like that. We can go ahead and just leave the background here. Let's go ahead and reduce this. We can go ahead and just leave the background here and just keep that like this. Maybe we'll change the font size a little bit. So let's do that. Call out value. It can be like 30. Doesn't have to be so huge. And then the category label, maybe we could just do a 10. Now, something interesting is I do want to make sure that I have space. So I'm going to reduce this in size a little bit. And I have, I think, 5 total, right? So 1, 2. Make sure there's no line between them. 3. 4. And 5. And let's say this is the last one here, and I want even spacing between them. I can just highlight the first and last ones, and I can go to Format, Align, and say Distribute Horizontally, and it'll actually distribute all of them at even spacing, taking into regard your first and last ones. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make the first ones, I'm going to make the first and last ones sort of rounded. Let's see if I can remember how to do that. I think it's in the border. Maybe in the properties. I know I saw the visual border there. I guess I have to do it here. I didn't think I had to do it here. We'll make the visual border white, like this. Okay. And then we'll make rounded corners 10 pixels, like that. Does that work? Yeah, sort of. I just have to move this one over a little bit. That works, right? This is rounded corners, but it stays static everywhere else. Good. Now I'm just going to format this and paint it on the right side. And now we can see that the corners are also rounded on the right. And now we have the format how we want. Now it's time to just drop the values in. So I'm just going to drop the values in. Instead of number of stations, it's number of unique countries. So I'm just going to drop country in here. country like this. Great. And now right click, count distinct, and this is number of countries. What was min, max, and average of elevation, right? So elevation, we'll drag that in. We'll right click on it and say min. We'll say min elevation. Here we'll drop elevation in again. We'll right click it and say average. And we'll say average elevation. And here we'll say max elevation. Max elevation. Now we can also put in meters here, like that, in M, because we know that those are in meters. You can also make them dynamic based on the value that is in the elevation unit. That's pretty cool to do too. And for that, you can use the label, the dynamic label. I think it's just in the formatting tools right here. Category label. No, maybe it's somewhere else. Oh, I think it has to be the new card anyway, but we're good. Okay, so now we have this. Let's see if we can sort of raise them a little bit to make it a little bit more even distributed. All right, so there we go. Now I'm just going to copy these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, holding down Control. I'll paste them over here and they're automatically over here. So now all I have to do is add the title. I'll try to keep this sort of simple and small. I'll say NOAA weather stations. And then just on the next line, I'll say summary. Summary view. In italics, this one, we're just going to go ahead and make them larger. So 14, maybe 16 will fit. Yeah, 16 fits. But this one, maybe make it smaller. 14 instead of 16. Okay, now we have this. We're just going to paste it over here. And now I want to put my logo somewhere. So I'm going to try to just put my logo right over the text box, or close to over the text box if I can. Ooh, and I also realized that we need pages too. So what do? Well, I think we can just move these down right here. This, and this. And even this text box. We can just move them down. All the way to the bottom. Like that. Copy. And then just so we have the right placement, I'm actually just going to delete all of these. Like this. Or like that. And paste them again. And that way I have the positioning perfect. I'm just going to go ahead and remove this and push it down a little bit. And maybe even a little bit more. Good. Now I have this gray square. And I can delete this one and paste it over. I'm going to go back to my selection pane and make sure it's at the bottom of my visuals. In layers, right? Okay, so now we have... Maybe we can put this text box down here instead. And put my logo up there. So I'm going to insert an image from my logos. Ooh, I don't know where that is. I think SQL Dev DBA logos. Yeah. Okay. I want to say it's like my Instagram logo here. That's the one I think I always use. Yep. There we go. We have my logo. Maybe we can have it in the middle here or something. And then the action that I want for it is to go to my Linktree page. So I'm going to say web URL here, and I'll leave it to Linktree. linktr.ee/SQL Dev DBA. Great. And now I'll copy that. Bring this guy down. And we want to change that to detail view, right? We want this to say detail view. View can stay. Just the summary needs to convert to detail. Detailed. Okay. And now we're kind of okay. I'm sure you can come up with much fancier titles than that. I don't really have the time for that, we'll say. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this. And we'll call this NOAA Weather Stations English. Save that. And now we can publish. Just go back home, publish, and go to data discoveries, hit select, because that's where I want to publish it. And we're good to go. Now, here is where I would go ahead and publish it to the web as well. So I'll hit File, Embed Report, and Publish to Web. You obviously won't do this as the data sensitive. If you're doing this with the weather data, go ahead and do it. Hit Continue. Read the warnings about sensitive data. Please take a second and just read the warnings. Make sure you're not doing this with private data or data that's not yours. Public data is okay to do. Publish. And now, anyone who's still here, you can be... Nope, that's not what I wanted to paste. This right here will lead you to that report. You can open it in your phone. You can open it on your desktop, whatever you would like. And you're published. This is where you can add it to your GitHub as a link. You can add it to NoviPro. And I have a video in my YouTube channel. I do have a video of how to go ahead and add a portfolio page to your resume using things like NoviPro, PowerBI, publish to web, that sort of thing. So feel free to check out that video. If you just search my channel for portfolio, there's both English and Spanish there. Okay, so we are done with the report. I'm happy to answer any questions while I sort of wrap up here. I'm going to save a couple things, make sure, I have everything that I need, that sort of thing. All the scripts will be here in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch, thank you for being here, first of all. And second, when the video comes out to YouTube, you'll be able to go ahead and download the scripts as well. Other than that, I think we can get ready to go. I think I'm going to go to Disney today, or at least I hope I can go to Disney today. We'll see. Let's see if we can find someone to raid. That would be cool. Oh my gosh. I think I get to raid one of my inspirations for starting to stream. I absolutely love his community. His name is ZionReel, and he's from the UK, and he plays lots of variety games. So I would love to raid him right now. Let's see if we can give it a shot. We'll go ahead and prep. And while we do that, I just want to say thank you very much to everyone for being here, for being with us. Let's see if we can raid Zion. And again, feel free to catch my this stream will be on YouTube. ZionReel. Okay, this stream will be on YouTube. It'll be posted probably within the next week. You'll be able to download everything you want. But for now, please, thank you very much for being around, and please give a little shout out, or please show a little bit of love to Zion. I've been following him for a long time and really appreciate him. So I will see you over there. See you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.